Hello, I'm Ken. The following recording was produced during the Southern California Nar-Anon Family Group's 2021 Narathon event, Healing to Hope, which was held in a virtual format due to the COVID pandemic. This recording is intended to be in keeping with the guidelines and traditions of Nar-Anon family groups, which strives to protect the anonymity and confidentiality of each participant. As such, only the audio portions are available and members are identified by first names only. The stories you hear are told in confidence and should not be repeated outside of the program, and this recording is fully protected by all copyright laws. The reproduction or unauthorized distribution of this recording or any of the content included is strictly prohibited. We share these stories and experiences so that we might better understand this program and ourselves and to give encouragement and help to the new member. The SoCal region would like to express gratitude for the Volunteer Service Committee that produced this event. This includes our committee chair, Dottie, our tech hosts and support, Susan, Ken, Roseanne, Roxanne, and Kay. Spanish language translation is provided by Angie, and the hosts are the Southern California Regional Chair, Roxanne, and committee member Ken. Oh, and as a reminder, this event is intended to be a fundraiser for the Nar-Anon Family Group's Southern California region in keeping with our 7th tradition, which states every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We gratefully accept contributions in any amount. Please visit our website at naranonsocal.org and click on the Donate button on the homepage. Use the comments dialog to indicate if you're donating to our Narathon fundraiser. If you are donating on behalf of a group, please also include your group ID number and meeting name. Thank you, and enjoy the program.
Thank you again for joining us. This is our 31st annual SoCal Narathon, and our theme is Hope to Healing. This is the region's largest fundraiser for the year. So if you would like to make a 7th tradition contribution, please visit our website at naranonsocal.org, no dashes. Click on the PayPal button at the lower left side of the screen. You may also send a check to our events treasurer, Susan S. Please text her your pledge if you're going to send the check, and you'll text that to 949-872-3941. Again, that's 949-872-3941. And Susan, would you mind putting that in the chat as well? If you're going to send the check, text her your pledge, and then she'll respond with the address where you're to mail the check to. Now, regardless whether you're doing it on the PayPal button or you're going to send a check, make sure whichever way you're donating that you include your meeting information. If you have your meeting ID number, that would be best. If you don't, you can list your name of your meeting, day and time that you meet. And then in the memo or comment section, you'll want to make sure that you list Narathon 2021, so that way we can make sure that the money is allocated correctly and that your meeting gets credit for the contribution. Now, with that said, you may ask, where does this money go? So keeping in mind our 7th tradition, every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. So our region's budget is approved annually by the GSRs at Assembly, and this includes allocations for regional expenses associated with things such as our Zoom membership, purchasing literature, conventions, new group outreach, Narateen, the Narathon, outreach, PayPal fees, website platform maintenance, sending our delegates to the World Service Conference, and of course our 7th tradition contributions to the World Service Office. So we know times are hard with COVID and everything, so we really thank you for your continued support for our organization. Next, I'd like to say a few special thank yous to our trusted servants who put this year's Narathon together, which is our committee. They worked diligently to put this program together, and they put it together in just about 60 days. So the event almost didn't happen with everything going on with COVID, and we're just like, no, we are going to do this. It's our 31st year. It's an annual tradition. Let's do this. So we had some folks who stepped up to the plate and said, let's keep the ball rolling. So I would like to say thank thank you so much to Dottie M. from Mission Viejo, who was our chair for this year, and she was our speaker procurement. For our tech support, we have Miss Roseanne, who is from Moreno Valley. She's also the Inland Empire Area Service Representative. Our flyer was created by Casey O. from Brea Fullerton. Speaker communications and our trusted treasurer is Susan S. from Mission Viejo. Our Narateen speakers and tech support is Ken S. from Chatsworth. He's also on our SoCal website subcommittee. He is the SoCal alternate delegate and also the World Service Narateen Committee vice chair. Our Spanish translation and outreach is Angie M., and she's from Paramount. She's also the SoCal region delegate. Also a committee member is KW from Brea Fullerton. And then of course myself, who's the host. I created the program and also tech support. I'm from the Inland Empire Virtual Meeting Group, as well as on the SoCal website subcommittee, the Western Regions Convention Committee, and your SoCal region chair. So as you can see, several of us hold multiple positions, and we're a little overworked in dire need of more people to step up to be of service. Our next regional assembly will be coming up on October 9th at 10 a.m. Anyone can attend this. The login information is the same login as today. So if you just keep that stuff on a Post-it, and then you can log back in on the 9th and attend that meeting if you're interested. While all of our assemblies are important to be able to conduct the region's business, the October one is especially important because it is our elections. During our elections, the folks that are currently in position have an option to either reconfirm or resign for the new term. So any member can be nominated for a position. Each of those persons will be able to present why they should be elected or reconfirmed for that position. And then the GSRs will take that into consideration and vote to either accept or reject the nomination or confirmation. Please keep in mind that concept for effective leadership is highly valued in Nar-Anon, and leadership qualities should be carefully considered when selecting trusted servants. So now for a couple quick housekeeping notes before we get started. All participants should remain on mute throughout the event to make sure that we don't have any background noise happening. Please keep your movement to a minimum, not to be a distraction to the speakers. If you do need to move a lot, just turn your camera off so that way it won't be a distraction. You may list your questions in the chat during each of the speakers. If there is time at the end of that speaker for Q&A, then Ken will present the questions to the speaker. We will also list the speaker's emails in the chat if they wish to be available for post-event communication. Again, if you're check your name on the screen to make sure that you don't have your last name on there. Some folks don't have a name at all. It just says like iPad and stuff. If you could please update your name, you can do that by clicking the rename. If you hover over your picture, click on the three dots and go down to rename. Or if you click on the participant list and hover over your name, you can click on more and go down to rename. Please list your name, your area or meeting name, and or your pronouns if you desire. And then that way we can have an idea of where everybody's coming from. There is no timer today, so if you are a speaker, please be mindful of the time. If you're getting close to your time, I might chime in and say 2 minutes, just so that way you know your time is approaching. All right, so with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Our first speaker today
Roxanne, yes. Could we open with the Serenity Prayer? I think we
Oh, yes,
could do that.
We would be more than happy to do that. So as a group, if you would like to unmute and then just make sure you remute as soon as we're done, you can join us with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you so much. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with our first speaker. And that will be Paige H. from Brea Fullerton, and she's been with NarAnon for 11 years. And Roseanne, if you can go ahead and spotlight her.
Good morning. Let me just say thank you so much for the opportunity to share this morning. I'm super grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for every one of the people who are participating today. I've been in the program for 11 and a half years. I haven't spoken in a long time, and I haven't been to a meeting since COVID, so I may be a little emotional. I've had a rough week, but I'll just start from the beginning. So my first experience with addiction was when I was a child. I was raised in a family where my father was an alcoholic, and probably from the time I was 10 until he passed away when I was 18, you know, he was very much in the throes of his addiction. So I knew early on what this looked like. I just didn't have any tools at that time. I didn't get any help at that time to deal with it. So as I go into adulthood, my next experience with addiction was when I got married. I was married to someone who had some drug issues, and I had a child with him. My firstborn, his name is Wes. He's now 38 years old, and he has struggled with addiction. And for the last, I want to say 10 years. But that's not what brought me to the program. I have two sons. I have another one that's 28 years old. And when he was 17, his addiction is what brought me here. So at that time, he was doing heroin, which to me was pretty severe. And I didn't have a lot of like trauma up to the time I found out. I didn't waste any time. I got him into treatment. And so once he got into treatment, I got introduced to Nar-Anon. So immediately as he was getting treatment, I was aligned with Nar-Anon, and I was getting treatment. My program followed his. He stayed in treatment for 6 months. He came home. I needed to make sure that I was at least as far along as he was. So I got very involved in the program. I got involved. I did my step work. I got a sponsor, and she was, you know, many of you may know her, Linda. And she kind of really encouraged me to step up and to always do what I can to give back in the program, to speak whenever asked. And so I'm sure she's with me today, even though she's no longer with us here on earth. So in the program, I met my family. That is still my family today, that I still rely on. I worked my steps. I did everything I needed to do. And my younger son is thriving today. So I have to acknowledge the success with him, which I often forget because I still continue on the journey with my older son. So when my younger one was in treatment, I didn't know my older one had a problem yet. And when my younger one came home, I could see that my older one had a problem, and I now have a fragmented family. I have one who's doing well, one who's not. My older son's married, has a wife, they have a child, and they're in full-blown addiction, living in an apartment, not doing well at all. And then they're homeless. So the journey has taken me to some very, very dark places, not just dark places, hunting them down, finding them, but finding a way to get my grandson out of that element. So it's one thing to have, you know, my loved one be an addict, but now when you take children and you're dragging them down into that dark place, it's really rough. So I managed to get my younger my grandson. I have custody of him. He's thriving, doing great. The parents are still struggling. They've had 2 more children since then. I want to acknowledge that my son, like, I think about him before addiction, and, you know, he was just a wonderful teenage, a wonderful child. You know, he's a soldier. He did 3 tours in Afghanistan. He's a disabled vet with PTSD. So it doesn't matter why he's a drug addict. but I like to remember that there's more to him than the fact that he's a drug addict. And so I have to consciously always keep that in the forefront. So trying to think what I need to share. So I have had, my story has continued. My son went into rehab one time, my older one. My younger one, I can just say he's a success. And so for that, I can give the rest of us hope. And sometimes I have to give myself hope, thinking he made it out. Maybe this one will too. This one has only ever been in treatment once and does not want treatment. You know, it's just like, he looks like a tormented soul to me. He just wants to numb whatever trauma that is unhealed from his life, whether it's childhood, whether it's the war, you know, whether it's his marriage, the loss of his older son, I don't know. But that journey continues, and I continue to watch it. I continue to love him, but I separate him from the disease. I love him and I hate the disease. I've tried everything to help him. I even think out of the box. I go unorthodox. I drove him to Mexico. I did an experimental treatment. I didn't care if it was going to shock the frickin' devil out of him. I'm that person that will do that. It didn't work. Conventional ways don't work. And so I'm always coming back to the place that I just get to accept that I end up here every single time. And I've tried everything. I know that most of the people on here have. The newcomers who are just joining, nothing works. Nothing. You could write all the things that we've tried on a piece of paper. Another speaker, I'm stealing this, by the way. If you wrote everything down on a piece of paper that we have tried to get our loved ones help, and then on another piece of paper, you write down everything that worked, the second piece of paper would be blank because nothing works. So this program for me works. It allows me to live my life, to still thrive, to still have joy, to still be happy. I still suffer. I still cry. I still grieve. I'm grieving now. And yet I'm able to suit up, show up, and still find happiness in my day. That is because of this program, because of what I've learned. So I had a situation happen last weekend, and I was in a very dark hole all weekend. I had to literally isolate myself from everybody because I wasn't in a healthy place. And I knew that. I knew because I had the tools that I needed to take some time. And when this is called Hope to Healing. Well, for me, it was healing to hope. And I think my thing is backwards, which is really funny. You see that background? Oh, it looks like it is on mine. Anyways, I had to spend a couple of days healing and accepting, and then apologizing to everybody that I pushed away. And the only people that could help me, that could just hear me, listen to me, I know they could feel me, are people in this program. My family couldn't, because they get frustrated and they get angry. But people in this program just sit, they listen, and they console me in a way that no one else can. And that's why this is called family group, because that's what it is to me. I have to look at my timer because I have no idea. I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't hit start. I think about my journey. It's really long. There's so many things that have happened along the way. And I've learned a lot of tools. I meditate. I try to anything I can do to find serenity and peace, because that's what I need. And this program gives it to me. The friends, the people, I don't even have to say anything. I can just look at them and they know when I'm hurting. Trying to think what else is important in my journey. You know, so I have a son, my older son, that's still struggling. Right now, he just got arrested. And I have hope because that's an opportunity for things to change and for time to reflect on what he's doing in there. I find that, you know, that is my opportunity to be hopeful for him. I have a brother who I think is not long for this world, who's taken the same path as my dad. So I have to watch that. And this is the only place I can find peace. When we started with the Serenity Prayer, I haven't heard it in a long time, and it made me very emotional because constantly being reminded of what we can and cannot do, and accepting what is not in our power. And acceptance is everything. I have fully accepted that my son is an addict, and he doesn't have the will to get himself where he needs to go. And I can't do it for him. If I could, I would. If I could trade places, I would. So I just get to sit back and send love and try to remind him a little bit of who he is, you know, underneath all of that. Having watched this disease eat away at so many people and rob me of so many people in my life, I'm angry. I'm super angry a lot of the time. And at the same time, I respect the disease, and I know that it is one hell of a opponent, you know, that I've tried to arm wrestle it, you know, I've tried to buy it, you know, offer money, here, $100,000, just stay clean for 6 months. Like, who the hell wouldn't take that, right? Just give me 6 months. Maybe something will change in those 6 months. You might find out that life is actually pretty good. You know, they were no takers. So it, you know, I've hit my bottom in this group. I know now I'm supposed to share about, you know, me. And just as my loved one has hit some bottoms, they're not the bottom enough. I've hit many bottoms. I often feel like a newcomer because I still show up and want to find a solution. I want to fix it. I know I can't, but my brain is wired to not give up. Never give up. I have that in a rock outside my house on a hillside that I put a whole bunch of little rocks that say never give up, that you can see from the street. I have a foundation, never give up. So that's like my motto, never give up on them. But along the path of never giving up is a lot of pain. And dealing with that pain and finding a safe place to share it, to have other people connect with me in that space, and understand. There's many people that I know love me but they don't understand, and the Nar-Anon group does. I mean, this is for us, and by having the group, it does take a lot of pressure off of the other family members and people that don't understand, because it allows my relationship with them to be about my relationship with them, and it allows me to deal with this trauma with other people who are dealing with it. I would say that the heart of this program is having a sponsor, going through your steps, learning about yourself. That has allowed me to become a better human being. It has allowed me to have more compassion, be kinder, and accept that on every day that we never know what other people are dealing with. My life is I wish that this wasn't part of it, but I'm so grateful that I've gone through some of the challenges, because it's brought me to a place of growth. I would probably not have explored meditating and what that does for my soul, and allows me, to find a peaceful place in sometimes absolute nightmare chaos on an ongoing basis. I have so many different stories. I don't know that those are really relevant, other than this past weekend, my son was arrested from the house here, and I had a couple of people ask me if he thinks maybe I called the police on him. And sure, that would be an option, because he had some warrants, and that would, in my mind, put him in a place where he might get treatment, because remember, ultimately my goal is always to try to fix him. But I've learned in this program that it's not my job to create this, his circumstances, that God will do that the disease will do that it will all catch up to him in the right time. And if I interfere, or I try to change the outcome because I want it sooner, because I'm impatient, the timing may not be right. And so that tells me to be patient, to allow his circumstances to catch up to him, that I don't have to create them, that his disease will. I still have a lot of challenges ahead of me. I still have a couple grandchildren out there, and this takes me to a new depth of despair of what to do about that, and what kind of commitment and life change that would create for me if I choose to pursue putting them in a healthier environment. So that's weighing on me. Trying to think what else I think I want to thank my group for asking me to share. And let's see, what else do I have? I just hope that more people, for every addict, there's probably 10 people that love them, at least, that more people get into these programs and can find some sense of family support. We talk about enabling a lot in the program. We learn about that. And we all do our fair share of it, me included. But I know that I have to do what I'm able to do. Like early on, I tried to draw some lines, very strong boundaries. Boundaries are important, but you have to live with the boundaries that you set, not that other people think you should set. And when you set them, then you have to feel comfortable and live with them. I've learned to do that, and this program has taught me that. Other things it's taught me is like being even compassionate and gentle with myself, because I was a single parent, so I felt like I was the common denominator in all these things, that somehow it was my fault. and learning that it wasn't, and learning to accept that I've made mistakes along the way, having compassion and love for myself and my life and what I want that to look like. And often addiction doesn't fit in there. Like I don't want this to be a part of my life anymore, but it's going to be. There's no way for as long as my loved ones are alive. I went to see a friend yesterday who's been struggling with her daughter since me and her daughter were teenagers. And before I left, she said to me, and she's 79, and she said, Paige, I just hope that when you're my age, that you're not still struggling with this. And I said to her, if I'm still struggling with this when I'm your age, at least that means he's still alive. And as long as he's alive, there's hope. So that's the place I live from. All this other stuff is painful, and it's a lot of drama, and it's a lot of chaos, and it sure does interfere with my serenity. And but you know, I love him. I love him as if he was that little blonde-haired boy when he was 10, even though he's 38, and I still see him in there, and I see him tortured. I mean, if anybody's really like looked and paid attention to an addict, they're not having a good time. So, you know, I'm a full-on believer in the disease, and I've watched my father die from it. I have many friends in this group who've lost their children, and I'm grateful mine's still alive. I'm aware of the potential high risk group that he's in, and so I just try to respect. I don't like the disease, and I don't even like to give it the word respect, because that somehow, but I respect it because it's pretty brutal. And you don't get a lot of compassion out in the world for addicts. You get plenty of compassion if your child has cancer or some other thing. But for this disease, you know, they're just a criminal. They're an ugly element that nobody wants to look at. Nobody wants them around them. Nobody wants them in their home. And that's hard to live with. So I try to keep them, you know, they're human and they're troubled and they have a disease and they need help. And I just explain it to my grandson that your parents aren't well. That's my only way, and that's the truth. It's my truth. It is the truth. They're not well. And I know that I have to take care of myself, and that I have to be well. I have to show that it's okay that they're over there struggling, you know, but I have to still live my life, live in a positive way, you know, set a good example, set a good role model, and lead the way. And if my son does choose to get clean, you know, I'll be here for him. Either way, I'm here for him. And hopefully be able to share the tools and all the things that I've learned in this program. Hopefully he'll get in his program if he makes his way there. I did my step work a few years back. Oh, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I would say that it's probably due for another go round at it. The thing about step work is that, you know, just as life goes on, so do situations, and we often find ourselves back at step 1 or 2. I mean, I'm there often, you know, when I'm trying to find a different result, maybe this time, try something different, and then I end up reminding myself how powerless I am. So the steps are there to go over and over. You don't just do them once, you can do them many times. You can return to any of them when you feel the need to. And so I would encourage anyone that's new to the program that has not got a sponsor or done any of the step work, that's where I think that's the heart of the program. And that's where it takes the focus off of your loved one and puts it on you, so you can get back into the business of your life, because that's really what this program's about, is trying to get us into living our life, and focusing on our life and what we want in our life. Not eliminating them, still loving them, but not allowing the darkness to take over our life. And this past weekend, the darkness did take over my life, but for a short time. So I have to say that without the program, it would have been a lot longer. It was a day and a half before I reached out. And then, so here we are. It's a week ago today, and I'm at peace. And if this happened last Saturday, I don't know. You would have had a different person sitting here speaking. It would not have been pretty. I'm not saying this is pretty, but it's much better than it was. So I just want to say how grateful I am for my family. And I know all the other meetings around our country and even in the world, they have the same program. So I just want to appreciate all of them and send love out to everyone who's struggling, to know that there is help here, and that we are bound by that. We are bound by this struggle and this journey. And I can't thank everyone enough. Thank you for going the extra mile to put this on in short notice. And I think that's pretty much all I have. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for Paige? If you have a question, please type it in the chat. We have a few minutes before we need to start with our next speaker.
So I'm Ken. I'll go ahead and ask a question then. Paige, early in your share, you mentioned that because of COVID, you've struggled to get to meetings. So I'm wondering, how do you work your program without meetings? And have you tried the virtual meetings? Is it something that would help you?
So I logged on to a virtual meeting, and I just was uncomfortable with like multiple people. I tried early on, and I just even this, if I would have known this was going to be a Zoom, I might not have said, yeah, I'll do it, because I'm I need human connection. I have my friends here, right? So that is more important to me. And I know with COVID, you can't hug, but that says it all. You don't even have to speak. You can just, see your friends and connect in that way. So it's been difficult for me. And then I moved during COVID. I moved out to Temecula, and I'm in now I'm quite a ways away from my meeting, and I have to be there in spirit. So no, I haven't. I'm not a fan of the Zoom meetings, although this quick little time that I've spent with, I feel like I know Roxanne and Roseanne and Dottie and the people who put this together. So maybe I'll have to give it another go.
Are you working with a sponsor or some other way to keep the program going for you?
Well, I have my steps. My sponsor passed away about 4 years ago. And we used to have step meetings at my office. I had an office in Brea, and we did it quite differently. We just had a rather decent sized group show up there every other week, and work the steps. So but I'm a believer that I work the steps on my own and I share it with a sponsor. So I need to pull my step book out. I haven't been doing them for a couple years now.
So Donna is asking, if you're able to, would you be open to starting a new meeting in your area?
It's possible. I mean, there aren't any meetings in my area. I looked online and the closest one is an hour away, like in Escondido. So that's a possibility that I might be able to do that. I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, I've been here since March and I've been like looking online, but yeah, we can take that offline and talk about that. Sure.
I know there's always help available to get you started, and there are, new member packets and things like that that can be arranged. So,
yep.
Any other questions from anyone for Paige?
Can I jump in and make a comment, Ken?
Sure.
Okay.
Who is this? Can you say your first name?
Yes. Hi, I'm Kay, and I'm part of the Brea Fullerton group where Paige would be regularly attending the meeting. And I just wanted to say thank you to her for her business where I was able to jump in and start my steps, and how powerful that was. And grateful. So I just wanted to say thank you to Paige because she got me started, because she wasn't even at the business, but she allowed the people to go there during the night. So thank you, Paige. Great speaking to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know in our meeting, some folks have not been able to attend since, they're not comfortable with the Zoom, and we miss them. Some of the people who, were regulars and had to drop off, there's still things that they've shared and experiences that we've been through. They're still part of our hearts and part of our recovery.
Yeah, I agree. And I've missed it. I can't even tell you, I've missed it deeply. Yeah.
Several people are thanking you and clearly quite moved by your share. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Roxanne, our regional chair.
All right. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Paige, for speaking. Roseanne, we'll go ahead and be moving to the next speaker, which is going to be Richard, who is actually in the same space, so you don't need to re-spotlight anybody. So our next speaker will be Richard K., and he's also from Brea Fullerton, and he has been with Nar-Anon for 12 years. And Richard, I'll go ahead, and I don't know if you have a timer there, but I'll send you a direct message when you're about 5 minutes out from the end time.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Richard K., and I attend the same Brea Fullerton meeting as Paige, and I've been attending Nar-Anon for 12 years now. Initially, when I first came, it was both sons were going kind of nuts at the same time. Couldn't tell which one was worse. But my oldest one, we did get him into treatment there, and during that time frame, I showed up. But I remember just being kind of at a loss on what do I do with this, and understanding addiction. It caught me off guard. Okay, so I remember I kind of feel like when we get desperate enough, that's when we do something. It's kind of similar to what happens for the addict in there. Until we get desperate enough, we may not get out of our comfort zone. So just first walking into the Nar-Anon meeting to me it's people I don't know. All I knew was that I was overwhelmed, okay, and lost, okay. And through that, I think one of the important things that I think, at least for me, is having a place where people can understand like what you're going through, so you're not solo in this circumstance. And one of the things I comment when I will share in my group is, being able to process what's happening, because it is, at least for me, it's pretty traumatizing watching, a loved one go through this craziness. Until you understand the disease of addiction, it just looks insane, in my opinion. When you're watching what's happening, it's like, why are they not making better decisions? and again, I didn't understand. When you don't understand addiction, you'll try having a conversation with them that pretty much probably won't go anywhere, because I look back now and I have a much more functional understanding of what addiction is. Their thinking is not going to be normalized. It's being driven by the drug that's causing them to be addicted and causing them to do these crazy things. And until I attended Nar-Anon long enough, did steps, I did when some of the rehabs that my sons were in, I would hear, I had an addiction doctor, I think it was like a 2-hour explanation that he gave on addiction. A Dr. Kevin McCauley, he's pretty well known out there, but that actually helped me understand addiction dramatically more. And once I understood addiction, at least my understanding is it allowed me to see things completely different. A lot of anger or frustrations kind of shifted for me. I was able to understand it much better. My efforts to try to talk my sons into making better decisions really stopped, because I knew I'm not going to talk them out of this condition. Okay, at that point in time, the disease has control of their behavior. Okay, and this is just my opinion. Okay, and something I've shared in our group is that, unfortunately, with this disease, this is the only disease that I'm aware of that pain is actually the teacher. You don't go to, if you have cancer, you don't go to the cancer doctor and you say, oh, the pain's getting a lot worse. And the cancer doctor says, oh, that's good. That's a good thing. They don't say that, okay? But with the disease of addiction, that is what's unfortunately required to potentially wake up the addict, to want to choose to potentially seek another path. So I've referred to it as a teeter-totter. So is it, believe it or not, there's some type of, I'm going to put the value right here that they're getting from using the drug. And maybe numbing out their circumstances, whatever, but there's value here. Until the pain exceeds the value, nothing will ever happen. The pain has to be, so the way I view it, when we look at like a healthy boundary, is allowing the addict to own the dynamics and the circumstances of their disease. And this is not to be, mean or difficult with them, but when we're trying to minimize or fix it for them, and we don't allow the full weight of their addiction to now weigh in. So when we, like I was at one, it was a NA convention in San Diego years ago, and just in the breakfast room at the hotel. There was, just a person that had been in recovery for quite a while. And I told him I was there for this. And he mentioned to me, he commented about just as, parents. He said throwing a pillow underneath them to keep them from hitting the concrete. And his comment was, that doesn't help. He goes, we have to hit we have to feel that hit the pain of the concrete. And again, it's hard until you understand how recovery works. You may look at it and go, well, why? I'm letting a loved one experience pain, but that's actually their medicine for this disease. And when the pain of their use, and you'll notice it, the more that we don't enable, the more the pain increases because they're feeling the burden of their disease. So they may get more dramatic because they're feeling the weight of that. And you'll hear people that are in recovery, talk about when the circumstances got so bad that they finally decided to seek sobriety. Okay. I think they even say something about like a moment of clarity. I don't know if that's the correct term. Okay. But it's like where you want, as I've been going to the meetings for pretty much every week. And when an addict's life is getting so bad that they say, and we'll use some word, they told me not to swear and I'm having a hard time speaking without it. But anyway, when the addict is their life is so screwed, they're sitting on one toe with nowhere to go. Okay. We don't have to deliberately do this in a mean way. We do this, and again, these are only my opinions. This is what we do this in a healthy, loving way, which does not have judgment to their circumstance. Okay. People know when they're being judged. Okay. So when an addict's feeling judged, they're going to put a wall up. So I feel like the meetings allow for me to process my feelings. And when I can process my feelings, I can have a more useful conversation with my loved ones without putting my own stuff into the conversation. So when I can clean up, so the meetings allow me to process how I'm feeling so that I can have a more of a neutral conversation. Like my oldest one has done well financially and would be, when he was in his use, would be spending very large amount of money on it. And so I'd have a very neutral conversation with him, just saying, how much is that going to add up to over 5 years? And it was an extremely large number. He's actually a CPA by training. So, and again, my comment with him is just, you can do that if you want. I can't control what you're going to do. You're the only one that can decide that this is too painful. And I can't make that decision for you. So the meetings for me have been profoundly useful to process how I'm feeling. And I'll have people, it may be a newcomer comes in. I've been going for 12 years and they'll say the right thing for me at that point in time. So it doesn't matter I think just showing up, being honest, authenticity of how we feel, processing how we feel. We can have loved ones that are family members, but they don't understand the dynamic. They'll make comments, like my mom will make a comment and she has concern, but I'm just like, the people that aren't locked right in the battle don't necessarily comprehend, what's going on. But the other thing that I feel and that I've learned is that some of my learnings have come from pain. I inherently, was trying to help and trying to fix it. So I'm doing, get him in a good rehab, do all this. But if his motivation is not to fix it and he's just complying because I'm trying to push him that way, I mean, there's a chance that it'll take. But if he's not motivated and I'm more motivated than him, for him to get well, that's my want. That's my desire. I'm trying to control the outcome. And one thing that I've commented, a share that I made, maybe a year ago or something like that, I said, just imagine there's like 847 levers in front of you. And as a frantic parent, we're pulling every lever possible to try to help promote their recovery. But it's their pain that triggers them. All those levers that I'm doing, they're not connected to anything. The one thing that I feel that you can do with an addict is to have a loving, compassionate boundary that doesn't have to be mean. I just like holding space with compassion for what they're going through and allowing them without judgment and with them knowing that somebody does care for their circumstances, but they're the ones with the disease. And it was only through my pain and trying to do all kinds of stuff that finally I realized all these things I'm doing, I'm more motivated than he is for his recovery. So, and I take my two sons, and then actually one of them has their girlfriend, who's the mother of 3 of my grandkids. So when I counted up I think it comes up to like 23 rehabs. So I don't know. After a while, I just lose count. But again, when they're going into rehab, and I'm hoping that it'll work, and it may work. But what I realize now is probably more of it was, my hope. Okay. And I think just respecting, the way I see it is that, left to the uneducated person, when you're dealing with somebody, a loved one that has addiction, it's going to take you for a spin until you learn the dynamics. Okay. And the addiction holds the power. It's controlling our loved one. So what I've been within myself is learning when I can create a healthy, compassionate boundary to put the power for me within myself. If I'm being controlled by them, I'm being controlled by them because I haven't learned correctly yet. And I'm not saying it's easy. This is my own internal learning I'm working on, is that the reason I'm being controlled by them is because I'm refusing to allow myself to have a productive boundary. I'm allowing their craziness. It's because I love them. We all do this, okay? I'm allowing their craziness to affect me. So respecting the disease and understanding until the pain of their disease is big enough when we're not trying to deliberately put them through pain. It's every person that actually got actual recovery, in my opinion, when I hear that pain exceeded the value of the use of the drug. Always. Okay. So if I'm standing in the way of their pain, I'm preventing part of that medicine that may wake them up. And so, not allowing that to occur is trying to control a condition that I can't control. I can't fix, I can't stop. So recently, one of the things that I'm now recognizing is that let's say for 11 or 12 of those years, recognizing how much it was affecting how I felt, and a huge amount of energy and pain and difficulty. And I would see that with other people in the room. It's traumatizing to his parents or to a spouse. What I recognize now is like, well, that's a choice. I didn't recognize that until right later, like in the last month or two. This is a choice on my part to allow this condition to destroy me. And I can let that happen. Okay. And it wasn't until I went through 12 years of letting it wear on me that finally I was like, wow, I could keep doing this. I could fast forward this another 5 years and take the next 5 years and let it really drain me and wipe me out. But now that I could see that, it's like, do I really actually want to live my life that in that same way? And recognizing, like, whenever I'm being traumatized by them, recognizing I'm the one that's allowing myself to actually be traumatized by this. So choosing that, hopefully, when they get recovery, they have their own connection with on their own timing with their own higher power. And I'm wanting to control when that happens. So do I put my life on hold and destroy all my happiness because so that's something that I'm recently actively working on much more. Just trying to see where I'm going on timing. Sorry, folks. But that has been, for me, that wasn't until I had the pain of 12 years wearing myself out. Like I tell the people in the group, I'm like a slow learner. Everybody's watching me going, when's he going to learn? When's he going to wake up? Okay. But we all learn on our own time frame. We're all going to learn what we're going to learn, when we're going to learn it. But for me, and again, I see our recovery being similar until the pain's big enough. Okay, when we keep trying to fix a problem for them, and we're enmeshed and entangled in their disease, and then we spend all this time and effort. And again, this is not to blame them. It's just the nature of it. And then, for each one of us, after 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 6 months, all of a sudden we realize, wow, everything I'm doing is not fixing the problem. And I may spend, X amount of money on rehabs, but that was my agenda. My agenda is for you to stop your disease. That's my agenda. That's not their agenda. I'm trying to force my answer to the situation. Okay. And again, when you come upon an addict or, at work or whatever, when somebody's trying to force something on you, you can feel it. People know when you're doing that. The addict knows, even if they're using, they know that you're forcing something on them. So where I've become, try to be is just allow them to have the consequences of their disease without judgment. And sometimes it may take me 10 minutes later to recognize I was, I'm locked in. I get locked in my fear. I may get angry at times, but as I've been coming, I'm processing that faster. So in my opinion, the verbiage I use is operating in a much more clean interaction with the addict, by which, without judgment on them as a human, they're of equal value to me. There's no difference, okay? And one of the things that I comment to some of the parents in the room is I say, we have no idea what their path is. So if they end up with recovery and they help, 6 heroin addicts get into recovery, and they do that, I can't do that. They can, okay? So we don't know what their path is, and if that happens to be their path and they finally get recovery, we don't know what it is, okay? And they do, there is hope, and they do sometimes. It's usually, like I said, from what I've heard on the stories, is when the pain got bad enough, certain people stopped enabling, stopped their enmeshment. So like when we talk about, detachment, if you need to physically detach and be away from them, that's true and correct. In my opinion, you need to do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. For me, with my boys, I process it enough. It's just, like I told my one after, it's like, well, you've already OD'd once, and so I just think it feels like we're just talking a matter of time. You've already proven you can do that. So, and having that conversation with him, he actually did choose to go back to rehab. But at first he had a wall up. I'm like, this doesn't look good to me. I'm concerned that at some point in time this will happen again, and I don't know whether you're going to survive or not. So I don't know. What do you want to do? So it's not easy. I mean, that was like 2 years in, and I'm still learning, all the time, I feel. But like the thing that I'm really noticing is who owns the power. So if my addicts got me in fear, and my life is being damaged and destroyed by this, the addiction owns my addict, and that's where the power is residing. Until if I go to like meetings and give myself emotional support to process this, so that I can take back creating my own healthy boundary, that even if this happens, I'm not going to allow it to destroy me. So, and as Paige mentioned, we have people in our meetings who have lost their loved ones, and God forbid that happens to anybody, out there. We obviously hope for that not to happen, and that's the scariest part with this disease. That's what I've told people. Is I said, if you didn't have potential death involved, you could just watch the chaos and step back and, oh, my car got repossessed. All right, well, I hope you enjoy walking or whatever. So, it's just the death part of it that's, at least for me, that's so scary, but for me, I had to process that that was a reality. And once I had done that, that fear was more processed, and it's allowed me to interact in a way that I think's been much more useful. What I think happens until you, at least for me, until you process that and come to, at least for me, the acceptance. I don't hover over it, but the acceptance that is a possible outcome of the disease. But until I did that, I was being run by my fear. I need to get him into this rehab because I'm afraid. Now it's like, oh, well, maybe you don't mind being homeless. I don't know. So my conversations have shifted. But that's just through going to the meetings, and I will just definitely say, like I said, for the uneducated person that's not trained on addiction, it'll send you for a loop. We didn't go through high school or college where there was a training session on this is how you create a healthy boundary with an. I don't remember that class being advertised. So, I'm still learning. Like I said, I have newcomers that say something. I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I needed to hear right now at this point in time. So I think that's about all I want to share at this point. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful that 12 years ago I went into that meeting, and otherwise I don't know where things would have been. So thank you for letting me share. And if anybody wants to ask any questions, I'm certainly open to that.
Thank you so much, Richard. What a wonderful share. Anybody can please put any comments or questions in the chat. I know we have people, just for reference, we have people from all over the world in our meeting today. We have all over California, Florida, South America. So it's wonderful to see everybody and to see how universal this issue is. I'm seeing that Susan says that she absolutely loved the analogy of the levers. I did too. I'm going to steal that and use that in my meeting. And Kay is saying that this is excellent knowledge, good recovery tools. Thank you so much, Richard, for your wisdom. I took a lot of useful notes. Good job sharing hope. And Roseanne also loved the teeter-totter reference, and Lee is saying, thank you for sharing your story. I know that from my personal experience, the discussion of death and what could happen was very much on my mind when I showed up at NarAnon for my first meeting. I had already lost somebody very close to drugs, and that's why when it was happening again, I came to NarAnon looking for the cure for my addict. And I remember somebody saying to me, this constant worrying is like paying interest on a loan that you didn't even take out. So the things that you said, Richard, are really helpful to me too, because I'm a professional worrier, and a lot of that is the PTSD from loving somebody who has an addiction problem. Lee says, thank you for sharing your story. Roxanne is asking, how do you get past the discouragement of the addict and so many rehabs?
Well, I've heard, and I don't know that this number is correct, but I've heard that like the average number of rehabs before recovery is achieved is somewhere around like 6, 7, or 8. And I don't know that this is technically correct, but I've heard that. We do have somebody in our group that I know for her daughter, it did take 7 times, okay? A comment that I would have on that is not to get completely discouraged, because what I feel that is happening is that the addict is having to learn about the disease. So when they go to 1 rehab or 2 rehabs and they've been clean for 3 months or however long, what I believe that they're doing is they're underestimating the disease and they don't understand the disease. So if they've been clean for 3 months or 4 months and then they're not fully understanding the disease, so then they start backing off on going to meetings. Okay, they're not being quite as humble, which that's a part of being in a meeting, and losing being humble to the disease is big trouble on the recovery. So then what happens, in my opinion, is the disease sneaks back up on them and re-engages them in the disease. And so to me, it's like they're going through a learning process of learning that this is way more challenging than what they knew. And so you'll see that where their length of time after each rehab of being sober may go, they were only clean for 2 days. The next time they're clean for 2 months. The next time they're clean for 6 months. The next time they're clean for 9 months. So what I comment to parents is don't get freaked out by the relapse. They're collecting data points, okay? And those data points are teaching them this disease is way more complicated than they knew. Until they learn the part of showing up in a 12-step meeting with your hat in hand and say, hey, I kind of got a problem, and everybody else in the meeting goes, great, we do too. But until you're humble on that, this disease will teach you who's in charge. And the only thing that will works is being humble enough to say, show up for, in my opinion, for them to show up in a meeting and go, I'm broken. And everybody else says, so are we, come on in. And humility and humbleness of that. But just to answer that, I think it's just it's a learning process. So don't get discouraged, recognize it. And even I kind of coach that with my son. I'm like, well, you're clean for 2 months and that's great. That's awesome. You weren't there before. You just have to recognize that life is about learning, and you learn that if you're not on this disease will come back and bite you. So.
Thank you. We do use the phrase "keep coming back" at our meetings all the time, because you don't learn this program when the addict doesn't learn their program unless they keep coming back. You're right, it does take time. Vivi from Mission Viejo says, thank you, Richard. I learned a lot from your share. And Leah from Lakewood is saying, I appreciate your sharing that addiction is a disease that we didn't cause, we can't control, and we can't cure. I recently heard in a meeting that the 3 C's apply to the addicted loved ones as well. They didn't cause it, they didn't control it, and they can't cure it. It helped me with understanding and encouraging those I love who are suffering with this disease. We say the 3 C's a lot at our meetings as well. And it's Leah, not Leah, sorry. Thank you for that correction. We have time for 1 or 2 more questions or comments, if anybody does. Okay, then thank you so much, Richard. I'm going to turn this over back to our chair, Roxanne.
Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you, Richard, for your share. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us. Next, Roseanne, if you can spotlight Andy. We will have Andy L. from Mission Viejo, and she has 5 years with Nar-Anon. Welcome.
Hi. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm Andy, and my spouse is my qualifier. I met my spouse in an unusual way. If you're familiar with the World Series of Poker, and if anyone's from the Midwest, you may understand the game of euchre. And we played euchre tournaments to qualify for the World Series of Euchre. And these were all through the Midwest. And so maybe once a month, once every couple of months, I would have an engagement and meet Dan, and we would be partners. And from there, we lived different states away. Our relationship at some point went from those euchre tournaments to, hey, I'd like to come see you. I had only known him on the weekend. I didn't know about his behaviors. Most of these weekends involved drinking. And he came to me one day and he said, I'm going into treatment. I'm an alcoholic addict. And I would like, if you think our relationship has a future, if you would go to a 12-step program. Now, I had never been exposed to alcohol or drugs or understanding the impact of the pain at this point of what an addict can bring into your life. And this was back in about 2003 that I went to my first 12-step program. It wasn't Nar-Anon. I did get a lot from this program. Dan went into treatment and he became clean for about 11 years. But this talking isn't about necessarily qualifying his sobriety. It's about why I need Narathon. And when I started into these programs, I did understand a little bit about boundaries, communication, and that I couldn't change anyone, but that my reactions could induce change into others. And I learned a different way to communicate so that my relationships with others were better. And I also learned that recovery was his. And what I didn't learn is that if you don't practice these things all the time, that you lose them, these tools. Now, I remember the people in those meetings and the pain that they came with and the resentment and how they found the program healing. And I don't think I understand the fruits of all of that at the time. Fast forward about 6 years, I quit going to meetings. My husband's still in recovery. And what want to say? Yeah, 6 years I quit. And he continues in his recovery. And I just continue my journey, if you will, in the 12-step program. But I still try to maintain the understanding of how to communicate with others. And it did help me with my family relationships. About the 11th year of my husband's recovery, he relapsed. But I didn't know it at the time. I was in denial for about 2.5 years, strong denial. And to the point that losing his job, having different friends, losing money, draining the 401ks, all of this wasn't registering with me. And I consider myself, as we all are, a smart person. I'm an aerospace engineer. How could I not see these things? And I went so deep that one morning when I went to wake him, I pulled a blanket out. Into that were drug paraphernalia, drugs, and different things on him and in his socks, if you will. And I proceeded to ask him who these were, who these belonged to. And he could see that, oh, maybe there's an opportunity to get out of this. So he kind of played along with me. I took all the stuff. My denial went so deep that I took a picture of all of this and sent it to our older daughter, who's a police officer, asking her what this was, what did this mean, and what should I do? Not at all saying that they were Dan's. And we had an 18-year-old staying with us over the holidays. And all this was happening rather quickly, by the way. I'd say within like 15 or 30 minutes of the discovery. And I said, this must be hers. We need to go talk to her. And as I'm proceeding to walk to the bedroom to wake her up and ask her how her drugs got in my husband's socks, he kind of stops me. And I realized right then, it was kind of like a wave that just washes over you. These were his. And I couldn't form a sentence. I was very shaken by it. All the stuff that I heard people say in these other meetings was happening to me. And I was scared. It was fear. I was resentful. But I did learn right away that I didn't know what my tools were. I didn't know how to handle anything. And of course, I just wanted him to stop. I didn't want to fix it. I just wanted him to stop and my life would be just fine, and so would his. And that was not going to happen. It had progressed quite serious. And to the point where we actually took him to a rehab at this point because I didn't know what to do and we couldn't afford it. And I remember sitting in there and the social worker saying to my husband, you know, he had strung along not just those 11 years, but many more years. He had been in the rooms of recovery since he was a teenager. And she said, you know how to do this. You know to get a sponsor, to go to meetings. You don't have to pay and come to this. There's another way. And you know that roadmap. And that's what he did. He got a sponsor, he started going to meetings, and he started getting better. I was even more angry because he wasn't repentful enough. He wasn't in pain enough for me. He wasn't validating what he did to me, because this was about me, is how I was looking at it in a way. And I understood that it was him, but I was taking it as he did this to me. And to talk about how when you don't, to give another analogy, when I went to college, I was 30 years old, and I couldn't remember how to do simple math, basically, add a fraction, if you will. And I had to start over in math 098. You could even use that credit towards your college degree if you wanted to. So I had to start there, and then college algebra, trig, calculus, then physics. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm quantum physics. And 6 years later, I graduate with a degree in aerospace engineering. I couldn't have done that starting right out. I had to learn the basics and have a foundation and grow and gradually gain those skills and tools to be able to get to where I am today. And it's the same thing with the program of Nar-Anon. So I knew at this point, about 6 weeks into his recovery, he's getting better and feeling better, or at least showing signs of that, and I'm still angry. And at least I had the benefit of hindsight, if you will. So I'm like, I need to get myself to a meeting. So I found a Nar-Anon meeting in my area, and which happened to be the IE at the time. And I showed up there just like all the people I remember seeing at the other meetings, you know, in pain and resentment and wanting him to just stop. And why am I having to go to meetings? I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Why is he doing this to me? He's changed the trajectory of who I am and what I wanted to be and what I thought our future was going to be. And as I kept going back to meetings and seeing people and sharing, I realized that I was gradually getting better. But it was one step at a time, one meeting at a time, one share at a time, getting one more tool at a time, and building upon that. And I wanted to share an experience at that meeting. There was a woman that I don't know if she still goes, but her name is Valerie, and she brought a tool belt with her, and in it was the tools of the program. And said, you know, not just a hammer, but here's your 12 steps. It was a visual. It was a really cool visual. And I remembered that about all the different tools and all the different things the program offers. And I realized how important that they were to me. So I started doing those things. I started making sure I was going to meetings, that I was sharing with people, reading the literature, getting a sponsor, working through the workbook. And as years progressed, keep layering upon those and build those, just like I did with my degree, then become sponsoring others, being accountable to the group and keep coming back, taking positions that make you accountable. And those things help in my recovery. And then things were going well about the first year, and but I'm practicing the tools this time. When that first relapse happened, one of the first things I did was call every person in his family and friends and everyone we know and tell him what a piece of crap he was and what he did, breaking his anonymity of recovery of his own, putting roadblocks in front of him. Now, he created this for himself, but I didn't help. I put more hurdles probably in the way. I didn't call anyone that knew anything about addiction or recovery. I didn't do it, and I didn't read about it. I didn't want to learn about it. All I was looking up was, what does it look like if he's not using, and what detox looks like, so I could see if he was in it. You know, that's what I was researching, not how to make myself better or to get out of the rut that I was in. So about a year after he started his recovery, he did relapse. But this time I was in the program and I was working it. And he also was working his program. Even though he relapsed, he understood the things that he did. He even said when he was on his way to use, he knew he could have stopped and made a phone call. He could have went to a meeting. But in his mind, this addiction had taken over, and he knew what he was going to be doing right then. And nothing was getting in his way. And when I found out, the first thing I did was I pulled out my phone list and I called and I went down the list until someone answered. Just so happened the first person I answered was kind of a newbie, but her response, even being new and coming to the meetings, was, "What can we do to help you feel better?" And I'm like, "He's the one who's using." She goes, "Yeah, but you're the one feeling the guilt and the pain and this emotion. Let's get you in a state to handle it. So let's take a walk. What can we do for you?" And took the program of Nar-Anon and put it where it needs to be, which is with us, the family members that deal with that. And it was a really good way of turning it around. And then from there, I went to a meeting, and then I used my phone list again and went to another meeting, and I just kept going. I didn't call the family members. I didn't do any of that. Now, my husband was already back in the rooms himself within about 4 days. And it was almost like a blip. It doesn't mean I wasn't in pain or I didn't feel betrayed or any of that, but I had a sense of compassion at this point. I know he didn't want to use. The addiction drove him there. They don't want to lose their family and their friends. These are not things that that they strive for, right? So understanding that what addiction is and that I didn't have anything to do with this was him, and working through that was much easier. Our relationship wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Narathon. And we worked through these things. He's a great husband and a good father. And I would hate to deny him the ability to do so and perform in that capacity as long as he's doing his work in recovery, which he did. And I want to talk about the third relapse, kind of, and I'll get there. But my one day I was leaving the house and I had the children. We had to get somewhere. And we have 2 teenagers still in the house. And I was pushing up the back seat, let them in the car. And I saw a 24-hour key tag in the back seat. And this is about a year after after that first significant relapse from the big one. And my heart sunk. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Because it was a 24-hour key tag. And in NA, they get, certain tags for sobriety, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And I was taken aback, but I knew I had to leave and I had to put my kids in the car, and I couldn't get on the phone and call somebody. I couldn't sit and read literature. There are things I was limited to doing. So I'm like, how can I work through this? Because I'm going to kill him. And so I start working the 12 steps through my mind, admitting that I was powerless over this and that I was feeling that my life was unmanageable at that moment, just recognizing that. And like, there's nothing you can do in this moment to change anything. You are totally powerless. Understanding that there was a power greater than me that could bring my sanity back. And then setting the table by making that decision to turn my will and my life over to my higher power. And just that moment of mindfulness, of setting that basic foundation, got me in a position where my cadence of breathing was better. My way of understanding and taking information was better. All the while I'm driving with my kids in the car and trying to remain calm, and they're listening to music and doing all their fun stuff. And then I started looking at, okay, so I'm making an inventory of myself. I haven't done anything to create this, but what have I done? I'm out of recovery all the time. All the time am I out of recovery. And just start going through the steps, not necessarily to find the answer of why he relapsed, but how I can get myself in a position to understand and deal with it. Admitting to God and to another person the nature of our wrongs. I'm in the car. I'm taking my own personal inventory, and literally turn to the kids like, "Hey, I was really a pain in the ass this morning. I'm really sorry." Even the little things, just acting through those steps were really important to me at that moment. Praying to God to remove my defects of character and removing my shortcomings. And this is kind of like how I just work through the steps for me and trying to take him out of the picture. Making my internal list of anyone that I have harmed and made amends to them all. And this is where I was apologizing to the kids before it was my own defects and talking to them. And continue to take that personal inventory. And trust me, this was a long ride. Praying and seeking through prayer and meditation to improve my relationship with God and doing the let go, let God examination of myself and what I could give to him, and realized I couldn't do anything about it. And the spiritual awakening was really more my ability to accept where I was. And I was so, I don't want to say the word was mindful, but much more calm to the fact that not only did I take my kids, drop them off, I don't call my husband, go home, we have dinner, we have a great day. And then when it was in a position or a spot where I felt like we could have a conversation, I asked him, I pulled him outside and said, I found this 24-hour key tag and I'd like to talk about it. And more or less approaching it with love and compassion. And he smiles and says, oh, he apparently has a position in his group to buy all the key tags and all the literature. And one of the bags busted and some things fell out, and one of them was this 24-hour key tag. And so this whole time I was, working through this, and granted, I'm glad that I worked through it because I was in a much better state, but ended up it was nothing. I didn't call his family and tell people everything. I didn't do that. Instead, we were able to have a conversation, and it was really about him being accountable to his meeting and group and what his responsibilities were. And it was not a relapse at all. So again, having those tools available to you and picking which ones you can use, when you can use them, and understanding that the program isn't fixing the addict or getting them to recovery, but how I can live my life and navigate living with that, with addiction and with my relationship with my husband. Let's see, trying to think if there's anything more I want to add, but that's what I find with the program Recovery with Nar-Anon, is that I get my serenity, and if anyone asks, how they want to help me, or if they want information, I always say, just go ask Dan, or if you want to come to a meeting with me, then we can talk about it, because I don't talk about Dan's addiction with my friends, not even my best friends. Very rarely does it come up. Our relationship, we can talk about how, stuff like regular married couples have. We exchange all the time, but I don't talk about that, because people that aren't in addiction, I don't think just understand, and they want to. It's not out of love. It's just they have a lot of information that isn't useful. And it creates barriers and divides sometimes in relationships. So I just don't bring that into my relationships with my family and friends. Another thing I want to share is we talk about love, and you'll notice in the 12 steps, traditions, I think even the concepts, love is not in that. They already know you love the person in your life. And it's not something that's going to fix it. You can't love them to healing. And so I always have to remind that you can love somebody as much as you want, but it's not gonna change anything. And so it's basically my story, and kind of probably went quicker than I should have. I was trying to keep it to 20 minutes for questions, but so I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Andy. Really appreciate it. What a wonderful share. Very moving for me. We're waiting for any questions or comments that people would like to put in the chat. I know one of the things that struck me is you seem to be able to go to the place of compassion fairly quickly. With me, I stewed in the anger for a very long time. It was very hard for me to be forgiving and compassionate. How did you make that leap?
It took me almost, I'd say, 9 months until I really started feeling better. But that's because just going to meetings and sharing was one piece of it. But I didn't feel like I was improving or being able to have any kind of remote sense of compassion until I started working some of the tools of the program. Until I started calling people, until I started working through a step or getting a sponsor. I got my sponsor quite early on. I think I first started in January. Like I said, I think it was about 5 years ago. And I think that April, I got a sponsor. We didn't start working probably for really, it was up to my control, right? And after about 3 months, she's like, "Do you still want me as a sponsor?" I'm like, "Yes, yes, I do." And we started working through that. So when I started working the tools and using them in the program, that's when I started to feel like I was being able to manage it a little bit better, manage my life a little bit better.
Leah says, thank you for sharing your experience, strength, and hope, Andy. And Susan from Mission Viejo says, Andy, you're such an inspiration. Thank you for your share. Yukiko from Long Beach is saying, I can relate to many things Andy said. How you went through 12 steps when you were triggered was amazing. Maybe if you'd like to talk a little bit more about working with a sponsor. I know that a lot of people in Nar-Anon don't have sponsors, don't know what to do with a sponsor. And I think there is a difference between a sponsor and a Nara buddy. I have a few Nara buddies, but I've also sponsored a couple of people, and I find that people are surprised at how much work is involved in that process. Maybe be helpful if you described how you work with sponsors and how that helps you.
Sure. So when I was first going, the workbook is very helpful. The one that NarAnon put out, it really stimulates your thoughts and things that you want to put together. And so I work through the sponsor book pretty well. I will say it does happen where I've had it once where I was sponsoring someone and we became Nara buddies because our relationship became so close that we stopped working the book and we just would meet every week. And that has happened. But it's really important to work through those steps with someone that's going to have you go through them and make you do it. I think it gets hard. And having someone to say, no, we need to finish step 8. We need to go through and do the work is really important, and try to not get into the buddy area if you're trying to really want to work those steps. I'll say though, I'm having to redo them right now. I was just at a meeting. I've had some obligations this year that is taking me away from my regular meeting. And my son was playing basketball on the same nights as my meeting nights. And I've gotten away here and there. And but just being away, I had dinner with a friend of mine who's in Nar-Anon. And when we were walking away, she said, you need to get to a meeting. And I totally believe that. I was losing it just because I wasn't using it. And it's so important to keep working through those steps, going to meetings, sharing. I have a situation with my family right now that's not related to addiction. And I'm working the 12 steps to figure out how I want to navigate that. And I even went to my husband like, hey, you're going to relapse. If you could just wait a minute, I'm trying to deal with this, but that's not going to happen. But anyway, I use it all the time. It's such a wonderful thing to use as the workbook. And I'll be honest, I haven't talked to my sponsor as much as I should have. It's probably been about 6 months since I spoke to her, but I'm going through the 12 steps now by myself. And honestly, it would be much better if I went through her. Getting a sponsor, making someone meet with you at a regular time, work through those steps, hold you accountable, and have you fill out that workbook and talk through it is so valuable. And I should, I won't say I should, I am going to do that. And it doesn't hurt. Don't just do it once. I've been through the 12-step book. I think I'm going on my 4th time right now. So you don't stop doing it. It's building. It's those layers. Keep doing it.
Thank you for that. Teresa is asking, how did you explain this addiction to your children?
Not well the first time, because I wasn't in a meeting, and when he relapsed, they knew he was, at the time, he considered himself an alcoholic. He had done drugs, but it was driven by the use of alcohol. He didn't consider, to this day, he still hasn't had a drop, but he relapsed in meth, 5 some years, or almost 7 years ago. And that was much harder for me. And for some reason, it seemed darker. And the kids were made aware because he was going to rehab, and we told them that Dad's going to rehab. Well, when we showed up and realized it was going to cost more money than we could afford, we couldn't do that. And now what I do is I talk to the kids about the 12 steps of NarAnon as well, what the program gives to me and how it teaches me. I'm very open with them about the 12-step program. And if anyone were to ask my husband about his, he would be open too. We don't share what goes on in those meetings with our family, but we do share the tools and the slogans. And I think it's helped them, really. They've never experienced him being actively using that I know of in the house. Well, I wouldn't say that. That 2.5 years when I was in denial, I'm sure he was using. But where I just didn't see it around the kids. I didn't see it impacting them until it became at the end when we discovered what was going on. That's when it became more visual and more readily known in the household, probably. But the kids have handled it very well. Again, I guess just sharing the tools of the program with them, but not necessarily sharing the details of it. They're open though. My daughter, who's 16, has asked about going to Al-Anon or Alateen. I think Narateen is going to be starting up soon, but I'm a little leery because she's going to hear the things that I've heard that I know she hasn't experienced, but it doesn't mean she doesn't have issues with it, and it would still be valuable for her. So I'm looking forward to Narateen when it does start up.
Thank you for that, because I was about to shamelessly plug Narateen.
Yeah.
I am helping to put together Narateen in Southern California. I work on the World Service Committee as well. And there are, for those who might be interested, there are virtual meetings that you can attend from any place. I know a couple of California kids do attend some of the East Coast meetings. There's meetings out of Florida, out of Canada, Pennsylvania, and they are in English. And we'd love to have Narateen meetings in other languages as well. There are in other countries, there are Narateen meetings in those languages as well. I'm going to post the link to the information on the Southern California website about Narateen, of course, on the World Service NarAnon website. There is even more information. And also, I'm going to shamelessly plug that this afternoon at 12:45, we have Narateen speakers on this program, and I think a lot of people will find that wonderful. And I know that from my own experience, having been a teenager when addiction landed on my head, there was no support at that time, and it would have made a huge difference to me if I had that. And I hope, I think it's wonderful that your kids have you to help them with this, with an understanding of our recovery. But Narateen is a safe space for teenagers to talk amongst themselves. Let me see, there were a couple of other things that came in. Roxanne is providing the link in the chat if you're interested in the NarAnon 36-step workbook. It's available on the WSO site. And Sissy from Fullerton says, your perspective in terms of starting off dating and then getting married to a person who told you he was an addict speaks to me, because my addict loved one is a romantic partner. Can you speak to what helped you step through continuing the relationship once you knew, since you had not experienced with addiction in your family or other sources?
So when he told me he was an addict, I actually asked him, are you really an alcoholic, or is it just because your family tells you are? Because I didn't really visually experience all the issues. And he's like, no, I'm an alcoholic. And it's funny that someone mentioned 7 being a number. I think he had been in 7 rehabs and halfway houses and stuff up before this, but I didn't know that history at this time. And I knew there was a chance if I was in a relationship with this person that he could relapse. He could do that. But having not known what that looked like, that ignorance, I will say, kind of saved me in a sense, because I just thought it wouldn't happen. I didn't think he would relapse. I've only known him really as a sober person. The other moments in life where I met him, we really weren't tight and involved in our relationship at that point. There were more acquaintances until like the last few meeting times that we were together, and we realized that there might be a relationship here. So I didn't look at him with that lens. But after a relationship, he's a great person. If anyone meets my husband, he's funny. He's amazing personality, and he's just driven, and he's a great person. That's what happens when you don't have addiction running rampant through your body. Don't ever say he's recovered. He's just always in recovery. And when this big relapse happened, you know, when you lose that person that you confide everything into, and how do you regain that trust with that person? I treated the meetings like my spouse. I couldn't tell him certain things anymore. I couldn't tell him how I was feeling and sharing. But the only way I could keep our relationship intact was to show up to my meeting, or more than one meeting, and dump it there to people that understood. And even if they didn't, it was still the release of being able to communicate what I was going through was so vital. And I treated the meeting and the people as my spouse until I worked through certain places. And as he earned his trust back with us, until our relationship came together. It's still not perfect. I still go to meetings and dump about him all the time. And I'm sure he does the same with me. But I know that no matter how difficult I can be, that is not going to make him relapse. I can't cause that to happen. I can't any more than I can fix it or make it stop. So that's all on him. And I'm along for the ride as long as he keeps his end of the bargain. And we've learned that our relationship, these meetings are important. This program is important. We will always be in Nar-Anon or NA. Always. It's a part of our life. Even if we were to divorce, I still have children with him. He's always going to be a part of my life. I'm always going to need it. And it's not a sentence anymore. I heard in meetings, I get to go to meetings. And that it used to be, you're making me go to this meeting. You've changed my life. And now it's like, I get to go to these meetings. And that is the best thing about it. And the people that have been in here the longest, you'll find are the healthiest and happiest people. Even if their kids are still in addiction, they're still better 10 years later than they were the day they came in. And it's still a struggle for people every day. My husband could relapse tomorrow and get a bad dose of fentanyl and be done. It could happen. It could happen to anybody. And I'm grateful that I have a family that understands that and supports me.
Thank you for that. There's additional comments about Narateen, including from Leah asking, how do members qualify to be trusted servants at Narateen meetings? I'll briefly explain that it does require a background check. I'm putting in the email address for our region. Please feel free to email me with additional questions. But basically, that has been the holdup in Southern California, is that dealing with the state of California is complicated, and getting approval to do background checks took a very long time. We're now there, and so I will be starting up meetings again soon. And so anybody who's interested in becoming what we call an adult facilitator, there's usually 2 adults at each meeting, and you have to have a background check, and then we do some training as well. It's not very extensive. Particularly if you're familiar with the Nar-Anon practices, because the Narateen meetings are pretty much the same as Nar-Anon meetings, and the adult facilitators are mostly there to guide the teens to make sure they are following the program, and that it's a safe space. So I appreciate those questions about Narateen. Do we have anything else for Andy at this time? Andy, I want to thank you so much. That was really an inspiring share. And I know we really all appreciate having you here. And I'm going to go back to Roxanne.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Andy, for your share. And thank you for all of our morning session speakers. We really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your stories with us. At this time, we're going to be taking a quick break until noon. We have about 7 minutes. So if anybody would like to step away, grab a cup of coffee, get some water, anything like that, we have about 7 minutes. At noon, we'll go ahead and start back up. Our next speaker will be Miguel R. from Pico Rivera, and he is going to be our Spanish speaker for the day, and Angie will be translating for him. So we're really excited to have his group be able to participate in today's event. So please feel free again to step aside if you want to go grab a drink or anything. I'll just make a couple announcements that I'll make now, as well as I'll make at the end of the meeting. Just FYI that there is new literature that was approved at the conference that they will be posting on the WSO website as they become available. The new version of the blue booklet is available for purchase now. So if you don't have that in your group, feel free to go ahead and purchase those for your group or for yourself. There will be an audio recording of this event posted on the NarAnonSocal.org website post-event. If you are a visitor and you're interested in finding a NarAnon group or meeting, you will be able to find that on the WSO website as well as the SoCal website, and we'll put both of those websites in the chat for you. And then also after the meeting, Roseanne and Ken have offered to stay on for a post-meeting meeting. So once the event is officially closed and the recording has stopped, they'll stay on for a little bit afterwards. So if there's any additional questions or comments or conversation that would like to happen, we'll have that available for you as well. And that's all I have for our announcements. So we'll go ahead and we have about 4 more minutes and then we'll get started with our next speaker.
Roxanne, are you going to stop the recording for the break?
Ken is
doing
that.
Okay.
Yeah. That we've raised so far. So we'll go ahead and get started with our next speaker, who is Miguel R. And he is our Spanish speaker. He's from Pico Rivera, and he's been with NarAnon 12 years. And Angie, Roseanne, if you can also split the spotlight with Angie, since she'll be translating. Go ahead, Miguel. You're on mute. Miguel, you're still on mute. Can't hear you.
¿Sí me escucha?
There you go.
I can't seem to put Angie on the spotlight.
Okay.
It doesn't give me that option. Can I only do one at a time?
Sí, porque yo ya quité el mute aquí está.
Oh,
¿Sí me
there we go.
escucha?
Okay.
I am also unmuted, so I'm okay.
Sí, podemos escuchar. Sí.
Okay. Bueno, buenas tardes, compañeros. Mi nombre es Miguel y yo soy un miembro más del lindo programa de NarAnon.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Miguel, and I am one member of this wonderful program. It's called Nar-Anon.
Primeramente, agradezco a Dios y a la persona que invitó a participar en este Narathon y a ustedes que hacen posible mi participación, que aunque dicho foro es realizado en inglés, lo cual me hizo meditar que esta terrible enfermedad de la adicción no tiene idioma ni frontera.
First of all, I thank God and the person who invited me to participate to this Nar-Anon, and to all of you who make my participation possible. With that, although said, forum is held in English, which made me meditate that this terrible disease of addiction does not have language or borders.
Es para mí una gran responsabilidad que en poco tiempo y sin darle otro sentido a mi participación, el poder expresar la misión de este bendito programa, que en mi caso muy personal me salvó la vida y la relación con mi familia.
For me, it is a great responsibility that in a short time and without giving another meaning to my participation, be able to express the mission of this blessed program that in very personal case saved my life and my relationship with my family.
El objetivo principal de NarAnon es llevar un mensaje de esperanza y fortaleza para los familiares de personas que sufren de la enfermedad de la adicción. Hay que hacer hincapié que dicha enfermedad es un gran problema social, ya que crea en los individuos que se encuentran alrededor o a unos kilómetros del adicto unos sentimientos de codependencia y gobernabilidad y propiciador.
The main objective of Naranon is to carry the message of hope and of strength and hope for the relatives and families who suffer from the disease of addiction. It must be emphasized that this disease is a great social problem, since it believes in individuals they find feelings of codependency and ungovernability around and a few kilometers from the addict.
¿Qué quiero decir con esto? Que mi vida empieza a girar alrededor y actividades de la adicta. Mi estado de ánimo depende de la conducta de la adicta. En las noches ya no duermo y empiezo a propiciar, ayudar que sea posible la realización de una acción o la existencia de la persona. En pocas palabras, si mi adicta está bien, yo estoy bien. Si mi adicta está mal, yo estoy mal.
What do I mean by this is that my life begins to revolve around the activities of the addict. My mood depends on the behavior of the addict, and at night I no longer sleep, and I begin to encourage, help me realizing possible of an action of the existence of a person or a thing. In short, of my addict, it's well and I am well, and if she is wrong, I am wrong.
Es por eso que viviendo el programa y haciendo uso de la herramienta que ofrece me hace que haga yo un cambio en mi manera de ser, pensar y actuar. Y de esta manera, y gracias a un poder superior, como yo lo concibo, que para mí es Dios, viene un cambio en toda mi vida.
That is why living with the program and making use of the tools that it offers me, I make the change in my way of being, thinking and acting. And in this way, and thanks to a higher power, as I conceive it, for me is God. A total change comes in my life.
Y lo más importante es que como por arte de magia viene el milagro. ¿Y cuál es él? Es el cambio del adicto. Hay una frase en español que se dice en los grupos, que dice, si quieres tú oír de milagros, ve a la iglesia. Si quieres ver milagros, ve a Narcóticos Anónimos.
And the most important thing is that the miracles come as it was a magic. And what it is the change of an addict. If you want to hear about miracles, go to church. But if you want to see miracles, go to Narcotic Anonymous.
Cuando yo llego a NarAnon en el 2009, mi ego monstruoso me decía, ¿qué haces aquí? Solo vas a perder el tiempo. En español tenemos una frase que dice, la mente te miente, mente miente. No me pregunten cuándo ni cómo, pero el cambio vino. Por mucho respeto, el día de hoy, NarAnon es mi religión, porque como lo escuché a alguien, Dios es como el aire, no se ve, pero se siente. Y así fue para mí en los cuartos de NarAnon, es donde yo sentí la presencia de Dios.
When I arrived in Nar-Anon in 2009, my monstrous ego was telling me, what are you doing here? You're just going to waste your time. In Spanish, we have a phrase, the mind lies to you, mind lies. Do not ask when or how, but the change came. With much respect, today Naranon is my religion, due to how I listen to somebody. God is like the air you cannot see, but you can feel it. That is how it was for me in the rooms of Naranon. It is where I felt the presence of God.
Cabe mencionar que mi participación está basada en mi experiencia y que no pretendo evangelizar ni dar consejos y que no estoy hablando por NarAnon. Y lo único que quiero es transmitir un mensaje de esperanza para personas que como yo tienen un ser querido en las garras de la adicción y que al trabajar con otros el más beneficiado soy yo. Es por eso que es una gran responsabilidad para los que vamos adelante mencionar que este programa es de amor y servicio. Y como me dijo mi padrino, 365 días al año tienes que estar en una junta haciendo un servicio o leyendo literatura de NarAnon. Y lo que me gustó es que no fui señalado ni criticado y el día de hoy tengo una familia en NarAnon.
It is worth mentioning that my participation is based on my experience and that I do not pretend to evangelize or give advice and that I am not speaking for Naranon. The only thing I want is to transmit a message of hope for people like me who have a loved one in the grips of addiction, and that my working with others, am I the one who benefits the most? That is why it is great responsibility for those of us who are ahead in the program to mention that this program is about love and service. And as my sponsor once told me, you have to attend 360 days. You have to attend a meeting 360 days, doing service or reading Nar-Anon literature. And what I like is that I was not singled out or criticized. And today I have a Nar-Anon family.
A continuación voy a tratar de platicar lo que el programa me ha ayudado a poder controlar una situación que pasó en mi vida.
I would like to explain to you a situation that it had happened in my life.
Es por eso que el día de hoy no me siento solo. Recuerdo una vez que llegando del trabajo, la adicta se encontraba discutiendo con su mamá. Hay que mencionar que mi hija, que tiene problemas con la marihuana, es la primera. Ella nació en 1991. Cuando nació yo estuve en el parto y es por eso que fue lo que cambió mi vida. Cuando era chica, fue la que menos me dio problemas. No sé cuándo el cambio es por eso que la enfermedad de la adicción es una enfermedad mental. No lo digo yo. La psiquiatría, gracias al doctor Carl Jung, hace mención que es una especie de esquizofrenia que tiene el individuo que la padece. Un cambio de personalidad que solo una divina providencia podrá curarla. Entonces, cuando veo la escena y como era el hombre de la cabeza, como así me fui educado a ser, el hombre tiene que llevar el control de la casa y el que tiene que controlar todo, intervengo y le doy un zape, le llamamos zape así en la cabeza, lo cual hizo que la adicta se molestara, amenazándome que le iba a hablar a la policía y todos gritando, sí, háblale. Entonces me invadió una especie de miedo e inseguridad, ya que yo acarreaba unos sentimientos de culpa por algunos errores que había cometido en el pasado. Entonces comencé a pensar que me iba a llevar por abuso doméstico. En ese entonces tenía un poco de programa. Me acordé de la oración de la serenidad y al darme cuenta que era impotente ante la situación. Dejé que Dios se encargara de mi vida, ya que en esos entonces, gracias a un cuarto paso, sabía que si no había sido una gran persona, tampoco era una mala. Me calmé y me senté en un escritorio. Cuando llegó la policía, interrogaron a todos, hasta a mi hija, la más chiquita, de tan solo 4 años. Después del interrogatorio, el policía le dijo a mi hija, ¿ves a aquella persona que está sentada en el escritorio? Es tu papá, y quieras o no, lo tienes que obedecer. Y santo remedio, la relación en mi hogar fue diferente.
So this paragraph is a little longer. That is why today I no longer feel alone. I remember one time when I came home from work, the addict was arguing with her mother. As she mentioned that my daughter, who has problems with marijuana, is the firstborn. She was born in 1991. When she was born, I was in her childbirth. I felt that changed my life. When she was a girl, she was the one that gave me the least problems. I do not know when that changed. Addiction is a disease, is a mental illness. I am not saying, I'm not the one I'm saying that. Psychiatrists do. I thank Dr. Carl Jung. He mentioned that it's a kind of schizophrenia that the individual suffers from. Their personality changes, and only a divine providence can cure it. So when I see the scene and what the man of the house that I was and how I was, and the one who has to control everything, I intervene and hit her on the head, which made the addict upset, threatening me that she was going to call the police, and everyone was yelling, yes, call the police. Then a kind of fear and insecurity invaded me, since I carried feelings of guilt for some mistakes I had made in the past. Then I began to think that they were going to take me for domestic abuse. At that time, I had a bit of program, and I remember the serenity prayer. And when I realized that I was powerless in the face of the situation, I let God take charge of my life. Since then, at that time, thanks to the fourth step, I knew that if I had to be a great person, I was not a bad person. I calmed down and I sat at my desk. When the police arrived, they interrogated everyone, even my youngest daughter of only 4 years old at a time. After the interrogation, the policeman told my daughter, "You see that person who is sitting at the desk is your father, and whether you want to or not, you have to obey him." And Holy Remedy, the relationship in my home was different.
O sea, no sé si ahorita en este Narathon haya alguien que se acerque por primera vez, porque para mí es muy importante la persona que se acerca por primera vez.
I don't know if it's anyone here for first time, but for me, it's very important to see a person that comes in for first time.
¿Por qué? Porque la primera impresión que tiene alguien dentro de este programa a mí me ha hecho la diferencia.
Why? Because the first impression that someone has, that has made my difference.
El programa es de vida. Con la historia anterior les puedo ver o transmitir que hice un primer paso, que es aceptar. Un tercer paso, que es dejar mi vida y voluntad al cuidado de Dios. Un cuarto paso, el cual me hizo ver que yo tenía que tener calma Y entonces,
Miguel,
cuando cambió
Miguel,
mi...
Miguel, ¿pudieras ir un poco más despacio para traducir? Más
Correcto.
despacio.
Con el párrafo anterior, quiero decir que este programa es de vida.
With the paragraph that I mentioned before, I like to say that this program is for life.
Porque muchas personas que se acercan a él quieren ver algo científico,
Because a lot of people that come in first, they like to see something scientifically,
como fue en mi caso,
like it was in my case.
ya que yo tengo una mente estructurada gracias a haber estudiado una cierta carrera.
Because I have my mind structured due to my studies and my career.
Entonces muchas personas cuando me preguntan a qué se refieren los pasos,
Then some people, when they ask me what are the steps about,
lo único que yo les puedo decir es que los pasos son para ti y es la recuperación.
the only thing I can tell them is that the steps is for you and that's your recovery.
Ya que las tradiciones son para hacer la unidad con los demás,
Therefore, the traditions are the unity for the rest of us,
y los conceptos son para hacer el servicio.
and the concepts are for the service.
La persona que empezó en este programa
The person who started this program
definió el programa en 2 palabras:
defined the program in 2 words:
amor, servicio.
love
No.
and service.
Voy a leer el siguiente párrafo.
I'm going to read the next paragraph.
Tengo que agradecer mucho al programa que poco a poco fue infiltrándose en mí, que pude aceptar y tener una tolerancia, porque ganas de golpear a mi hija no me faltaba, ya que yo crecí en un hogar disfuncional, donde mi padre era el teniente coronel de infantería de marina. Era él el que mandaba y su familia ni voz ni voto tenía. Llegué a pensar que como yo, que le había dado todo a mi hija y que la quería como si fuera el ser más importante en mi vida, me había hecho eso. Mi sentimiento fue de impotencia y decepción. Es por eso que cuando pude aceptar que la drogadicción es una enfermedad mental, pude comprender que la que había hecho eso fue la enfermedad y no mi hijo. Entonces, el día de hoy, ese sentimiento de impotencia y resentimiento se transformó por uno de compasión y amor.
I have a lot to thank to the program. That is, little by little, it was infiltrated within me. I was able to accept and have tolerance because the desire to hit my daughter was not lacking. Since I grew up in a dysfunctional home where my father was a colonel lieutenant of the Marine Corps, and he was the one who ruled his family, and we did not had a voice or a vote. I came to think that someone like me who had given everything to my daughter and loved her as if she was the most important being in my life. How she has done that to me. My feelings were helplessness and disappointment. That's why when I was able to accept that drug addiction is a mental illness, I was able to understand that the one that had done that was the disease and not my daughter. So today, that feeling of helplessness and resentment was transformed into one of compassion and love.
Sí, porque gracias al programa yo pude ver que la enfermedad no era la droga,
Because thanks to the program, I was able to see that the illness is not the drug,
sino la personalidad del adicto.
but the personality of the addict.
Porque muchas personas, en mi caso,
Because a
creíamos
lot of people in my case, we thought
que cuando tú consumías droga eras un enfermo adicto.
that when you use drugs, you were addict illness.
Y con eso puedo hacer relación al alcohol,
And with that, I can make a relation within the alcohol too.
ya que el alcohol también es una droga.
That alcohol is also a drug.
Entonces, a mí me daba mucha tristeza
Then I was feeling very sad,
y tenía muchos sentimientos de culpa
and I had a lot of guilt feelings
por los errores que había cometido yo con la familia.
for the mistakes that I had made with my family.
Pero gracias al programa y gracias a ustedes
But thanks to the program and to all of you,
y a Dios en primera plana,
and to God in the first place,
me di cuenta que ya no tengo que vivir el pasado
I realized that I don't have to leave in the past,
y que tengo que tratar de ignorar el futuro.
and that I have to try to ignore the future.
Que el día de hoy solo tengo que vivir 24 horas.
That today I only have to live 24 hours.
Y mi padrino me dijo, si se te hacen larga, córtalas a 12.
And my sponsor told me that if they're too long, just cut them to 12
O a 6.
or to 6 hours.
Es por eso que el día de hoy yo no intervengo en la vida de mi hija.
That's why today I don't intervene in my daughter's life.
Y fíjense lo más importante que yo he aprendido,
The most important thing I have learned,
gracias a las tradiciones, yo no puedo decir que alguien sea adicto o no.
thanks to the traditions, I cannot say that someone is addict or not.
Que solamente tengo que hablar de mi caso y de mi vida.
That I can only talk about my case and my life.
El siguiente párrafo dice, como esas experiencias hay varias, pero el día de hoy, gracias a Dios y a ustedes, tengo la capacidad para poder afrontarlas de una manera. Pocas personas saben que este programa fue sacado de la Biblia y la psiquiatría, que porque la palabra de la Biblia que dice, ¿por qué te afanas por el día de mañana si a cada día le llega su bendición? Es el solo por hoy del programa de NarAnon. Y que cuando Jesucristo, después de que realizaba una sanación, les decía a sus apóstoles que no dijeran nada, es el anonimato. Es por eso que hoy, si Dios me lo permite, me siento como Saulo de Tarso.
As these experiences, there are several, but today I give thanks to God and to you. I have the ability to face them in a better way. Few people know that this program was taken from the Bible and psychiatry. Why do you worry about the day? Each morning has its blessing, and they come every day. It's the just for today reminds me that when Jesus Christ has performed a healing, he told his apostles not to say anything because he's anonymous. That is why today, if God allows me to, I feel like Saul of Tarsus in those days.
Entonces es por eso que el día de hoy
That is why today, just for today,
Los 12 pasos del programa me los aplico a mí.
The 12 steps of the program, I apply them to myself.
Uno de los pasos que me ha costado mucho trabajo
One of the steps that has given me the hardest time
es el 5º paso.
is the 5th step.
¿Por qué?
Why?
Porque es un paso de honestidad
Because it's a step of honesty.
y a veces en mi cabeza
And sometimes in my head,
como que quiero acomodar las cosas a mi manera
I like to fix things my way,
y eso se llama control.
and that is called control.
Es por eso que el día de hoy, si encuentro una pipa enterrada en una maceta,
That's why if today I find a pipe buried in a planter
o un encendedor que está abajo del tapete,
or a lighter that is under the mat,
no sé si esté bien o esté mal,
I don't know if it's right or wrong.
hago caso omiso y me doy la vuelta.
I ignore it and I walk away.
¿Por qué?
Why?
Porque yo no soy Dios.
Because I'm not God.
Yo no puedo cambiar a nadie.
I can't change anyone.
Y por la forma de ser de mi padre,
And the way my father was,
que fue lo que me transmitió,
it was what he transmitted me.
yo quería que todos hicieran lo que yo creí que era bueno.
I wanted everyone to do what I thought it was right.
Si yo era universitario, mis hijas tenían que ser universitarias.
If I went to the university, my children had to go to university.
Les voy a contar algo chistoso dentro de las agrupaciones.
I have to tell you something funny within the groups.
A veces por mi ego, cuando subía a una tribuna,
Sometimes because of my ego, when I was going in the Tribune,
recitaba la tabla periódica.
I was reciting the periodic table, the numbers.
Decía hidrógeno, helio, litio, berilio, boro, carbono, nitrógeno, oxígeno, flor, neón, sodio, magnesio, aluminio, silicio, fósforo, azufre, cloro.
Despacio.
Es la tabla periódica.
I was saying chloro, magnesium, potassium, chromium, silver, all of the table of the chemical numbers.
Recitaba unas ciertas fórmulas,
Because I recited some formulas,
como decir E igual a MC cuadrada menos B menos B cuadrada sobre raíz cuadrada de B cuadrada menos 4AC sobre 2A. Era la tremenda locura.
like I was tabling everything, 2 times 4, times 9, times that. It was crazy for me.
Entonces, con esto me doy cuenta
With this, I realized
que la familia es muy importante para la recuperación del adicto.
the family is very important for the addict's recovery.
Que se dé cuenta que el adicto no cuando amanece,
That he has to know that when the first thing in the morning,
piensa, voy a usar drogas para fastidiar a este viejito.
they might think that they have to use drugs to give a hard time to the family.
O sea, el uso de las drogas no es falta de amor.
The use of drugs is not lack of love.
El sábado pasado se casó mi hija.
Last Saturday, my daughter got married,
La segunda,
the second one,
y la primera fue y me sacó a bailar.
and the first one came out and took me to dance.
Y me apretó tanto que yo creí que me sacaba el cerebro.
And she hugged me so hard that I thought my head was going to explode.
Entonces, eso me dio mucha alegría.
I was very happy for that.
Entonces, el día de hoy, gracias al programa,
And today, because of the program, thanks to the program,
yo no critico a mis hijas,
I don't criticize my children, my daughters.
las acepto.
I accept them.
La segunda no tiene una adicción a una sustancia,
The second one doesn't have an addiction to a substance,
pero es adicta a las relaciones conflictivas.
but she's addicted to the conflicted relationships.
Entonces es por eso que a veces
That's why sometimes
pienso que yo sin usar drogas
I think that me, without using drugs,
hago más locuras que un adicto.
I do more crazy things than an addict.
Mi problema viene desde las heridas del alma.
My problem comes from my being,
Yo
my
tuve,
being hurt.
yo tuve mucho abandono
I had abandonment in my childhood,
y rechazo.
and I reject.
Gracias al programa me di cuenta que yo,
Thanks to the program, I realized that
por parecerme a mi padre,
because I look so much like my dad,
que era el que abusaba de mi madre,
that he was the one, I was the one that abused my mother.
y mi madre abusaba de mí,
Oh, my father abused my mother and my mother abused me
por parecerme a mi padre.
because I look like my father.
Eso se le llama efecto dominó.
That's called domino effect.
Entonces, si yo pudiera platicar
If I could tell
desde 1993
from 1993
que llego al programa de los 12 pasos,
that I got to the 12-step program,
toda la experiencia que tengo,
all the experience that I acquired,
necesitaría como 2 o 3 días.
I would need about 2 or 3 days.
Pero lo único que puedo mencionar,
The only thing I can mention,
si ustedes me lo permiten,
if you allow me to,
es decirle al nuevo
is to tell the newcomer
que se sacó la lotería sin comprar boleto,
that you got the lottery ticket without purchasing a ticket.
que este programa, si se lee,
That this program, if you read it,
es para vivir.
it's to live.
Por eso el día de hoy yo vivo el programa.
That is why, just for today, I leave the program.
No quiero que otros vivan el programa.
I don't want anybody else to leave the program.
Y a veces cuando me preguntan
And sometimes when people ask me
cuánto tiempo tengo yo en el programa,
how long I've been in the program,
les digo que solo 24 horas,
I tell them only 24 hours.
que son las únicas que me pertenecen.
Those are the only ones that pertain to me.
Y como antes era una persona
Because before I used to be a person
que no respetaba,
that I did not respect.
el día de hoy, gracias a Dios y a ustedes,
Today, thanks to God and to you,
respeto el tiempo y el programa, y como
I
veo
respect
que se acabó
the
el
time and
tiempo,
the program, and because the time is over,
solo me resta dar gracias a todos por dejarme compartir
I'd like to thank everyone to allow me to share, for allowing me to share
y de poder transmitir mi diario vivir,
and to transfer my daily living.
que si no hubiera sido por él,
That if it hadn't been for him,
yo estaría en la cárcel
I would be in jail,
o en un hospital
in the hospital,
o en el panteón.
or in the graveyard.
Y que Dios me los bendiga a todos y que a mí no me
And
olvide.
God blesses you all, and God doesn't forget me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me share it.
Thank you so much, Miguel.
And thank you for allowing me to serve.
Thank
Muy
you.
muchas gracias, Miguel. If there anyone who has questions or comments for Miguel, please post them in the chat window. Si alguien tiene alguna pregunta o comentario para Miguel, por favor, use la ventana de chat. I hope I said that okay. There are a few comments already and questions, so I will try to get through them. A lot of people are saying how thrilled they are to have you here. Roxanne says that so many people are lost and don't have a higher power when they find our rooms. And she appreciates that you said NarAnon became your religion, that you recite the Serenity Prayer when faced with a difficult situation, love and service. I'll ask about that as well, because I know I struggled because I'm not part of an organized religion. I don't go to church or anything like that. And when I was faced with the higher power of Nar-Anon, for me, that was a struggle. And I wonder what advice you give to those people who are not religious, who are not part of a specific faith. Do you need Angie to translate that for you?
Oh, I need to go slow. You need to go slow.
All right.
So if you'd like me to translate, I will gladly do, but we got to go slow.
Okay. So my question is for those people
Mi pregunta es para esas personas
who are not part of a religion,
que no son parte de una religión.
what advice does he give to them in terms of using the higher power in the Nar-Anon steps?
¿Qué les aconsejarías sobre los pasos para aquellas personas que no son parte de una religión?
Yo les aconsejaría
I
que
would
tratar,
suggest them,
como a mí me dijeron,
like I was told,
ven Miguel, siéntate en una silla
sit down in a chair, come on into the program and sit down in a chair
durante 12 horas
for 12 hours.
y después 12 horas carga tú la silla.
And after 12 hours, you take the chair, you carry the chair.
Y te vas a dar cuenta que no vas a poder.
You will realize that you can't do that.
Entonces, en cierta manera, la silla es superior a ti.
Perdón, Miguel, no te escuché. ¿La silla es qué?
De cierta manera, la silla pues es superior a ti, porque ella sí te cargó a ti y tú no a ella.
Oh, in certain form, the chair is superior to you because the chair did carry you, but you couldn't carry the chair.
Entonces, hay algo superior a ti.
So there is something that is superior to us.
Déjalo ahí.
Let it be.
Tírate de muertito
Make yourself like you're dead
y deja que él haga su parte y tú la tuya.
and allow him to do his work and you do yours.
En el programa se dice,
In the program, we tell,
no busques qué fue primero, si el huevo o la gallina.
don't look to see who was first, if the chicken or the egg.
Eso es lo que a veces sugiero para alguien que no cree en Dios
This is what I suggest for someone that doesn't believe in God,
o esté resentido con Dios.
or he has a resentment toward God.
Thank you so much. I'm going to continue to read comments. I hope either Miguel understands them or you can translate. Greg asked the same question I just asked, so I'll move.
Greg te preguntó la misma pregunta, so la va a pasar.
And Roseanne says you can still depend on a higher power without going to church. God is not limited to a building.
Rosana dijo que todavía puedes creer en un Dios y que no tenemos que creer en un edificio.
And Maria says, muchas gracias, Miguel, por compartir su experiencia personal y también gracias por recordarnos que los pasos son tan importantes como la familia. Roseanne added, thank you, Miguel, for being so open and transparent with your experience.
Que Rosan te dio gracias por ser tan abierto y transparente con tus experiencias.
There's lots of muchas gracias, Miguel's.
Y hay muchas gracias, Miguel.
And hugs and things like that.
Y abrazos.
And these are from people from all over the country. And also we have people from South America today.
Y hay muchas personas que se
California,
unieron del sur, de otros países.
And I'm trying to see before, because we are starting to run out of time, if there are more questions. I'm just seeing lots of wonderful comments about what a wonderful speaker Miguel is.
Que te enviaron muchas felicitaciones y muchos buenos deseos por el compartimiento.
I'm also going to add, as we close out this portion, that I know that many of the Spanish-speaking meetings are in East LA and that area, but we could use additional meetings.
Quiero adherir que hay muchas reuniones en el sur de Los Ángeles y que podemos entrar.
For example, in San Fernando Valley, there's a lot of Latin Americans and there's no Spanish-speaking meeting.
Por ejemplo, en el área de San Fernando Valley hay muchas personas hispanas, pero no hay reuniones en español. Los invitamos a todas estas personas que están ahorita en español que visiten la página de internet y ahí encontrarán la información para entrar a las reuniones en español.
And then also, Narateen is represented on the World Service Committee by people from all over the world, but we have yet to get somebody from Latin America. So a Spanish-speaking member or somebody from Latin America would be really welcomed on the Narateen committee.
Y también el programa de Narateen para los adolescentes se está abriendo y se les invita a todos los naratines a nivel mundial a que sean partícipes en nuestro comité y que abramos más reuniones, yo les sugiero.
All right. If there's no other questions, one additional comment from Cheryl, I see it meant a lot to me when you said, if you want to hear about miracles, go to church. If you want to see miracles, go to Nar-Anon. And I agree with that too. All right. Thank you so much, Miguel. We really appreciate your being with us today. It was a groundbreaking share. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, everyone. I love you, my family.
And I'll turn it back over for a second to Roxanne.
All right. Thank you again, Miguel. And thank you, Angie, for translating for us and being of service. So next, we will have Ken from Chatsworth, who will speak a little bit about the Narateen program, and then he will individually introduce his Narateen speakers. Back to you, Ken. Roseanne, if you can highlight Ken, please.
Okay. Didn't expect to see myself that big on the screen. Hi, I'm Ken, and I have been attending the Chatsworth meeting in San Fernando Valley for a number of years now. I think I'm about to hit 6 or 7 years. I've lost track. And I was a guest speaker at the Narathon a couple of years ago, so many of you probably have heard my story, so I'm not going to go into all of it again, but I'll tell you a little bit just so you understand why Narateen is such a passion of mine and why I'm so involved in it. First of all, for those who are not familiar with Narateen, it is a growing part of our fellowship. It's an extremely important part, and you will start to see it featured more prominently on our World Service website and in the endeavors that we do. NarAnon is a younger program than Al-Anon. Alateen is a really big deal there, and we hope that Narateen here in our fellowship continues to grow. Narateen meetings are almost exactly like NarAnon meetings, but they are a safe space for teenagers to speak about the journey and to share their recovery from having someone important in their lives who struggles with addiction. We often forget, because so many of our meetings are about parents dealing with their children or spouses dealing with their spouses who are addicts, that addiction affects people of all ages, of all cultures, of all backgrounds. And when it happens in a family, it affects every single family member. the very brief version of my story was that drug addiction first hit my life when I was 10 years old. And I discovered that my 13-year-old brother was using drugs. And throughout my teenage years, it became a catastrophe of violence, of fear, of police, of jail. My only safe space was either school, or I lived a good part of my life as a teenager while I grew up in New York City. I slept on subways. I wandered the streets of Times Square with pimps and hookers and drug dealers who protected me. I felt safer with them than I did at home. And that was my entire adolescence. This continued until I was 21 years old and moved out of my home. Over the years, I made a lot of bad choices in life. I got involved with people who I thought I could rescue. This became a pattern. It became a PTSD in my life because I kept trying to solve the problems that I couldn't solve when I was a teenager. I finally ended up at Nar-Anon as an adult because my younger brother was struggling with drugs and was now in and out of prison. And I just couldn't do it again. And I thought I was coming to Naranon to find a cure for my brother. And instead, I found that I was coming to Naranon to find help for me, and that I needed to do work for my own recovery to live a better life. I'm now a foster parent. I've had children in my home, teenagers in my home, and I can tell you with a lot of certainty that the vast majority of foster children end up in the foster care system because of the addiction of a loved one. It destroys families. Right now, we are about to launch Narateen in Southern California for the first time. It's been a long, arduous amount of work because the state of California is difficult to get background checks for the adults, to get approval and all of that. We've gotten through almost all the paperwork. So those of you who are interested in being on the committee, we are going to be resuming our committee work very soon because it's just about ready. We will be starting our meetings probably on virtual, meaning Zoom type meetings. In part because of COVID, but in part because Narateen has found that many of the kids are just really comfortable in those situations. For those who are interested in joining the committee or who would like to know more about Narateen, because there are meetings that are currently available in places like Florida, Pennsylvania, New York, and Canada, English-speaking meetings that your teenagers can join from any place. So they don't have to wait until we launch it in Southern California. I'm putting my email address in the chat. And you can also find, I thought I had it ready, but I will put it by the end of our presentation, the link to more information about Narateen. I'm also on the World Service Narateen Committee. I serve as the vice chair, and I can tell you that in the last couple of years, it's become a lot more active. We've had a lot of success, and we could always use, as I said, Spanish-speaking members and other people who are interested. I've used up my time. I don't want to take time from the kids. We have two teenagers today who are members of Narateen, and they're going to share their experience for you. They both told me they're a little bit nervous, but they're very, very excited to be here, and we're thrilled to include them. It's a brave thing for a teenager to do this, and they are two of the very first Narateens to be guest speakers in any event. So I want to welcome both Kimberly and Cecilia. And let's start off with Kimberly. She's in New York City. She's on break. She works at the High Line, and her supervisor has given her a quick break. So if we could put the spotlight on Kimberly.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
We can hear you. Is your video on? There you go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Smith. I'm 16 years old, turning 17 this year. I live in New York. My mother is an addict. I've had some similar experiences to what Ken was speaking about, going through stuff, being in the middle of New York City in the middle of the night. I ended up in New York City because my mom is an addict, actually. She moved up here kind of spur of the moment out of nowhere. I lived with my dad for a while, and my dad passed away in a car accident. So I had to move up here with my mom. I was with her for a few months, and then she relapsed. So I was staying with random friends, not knowing where to be or, what to do, where to go. I eventually became a foster kid after, I think, maybe 2 weeks of sleeping at friends' houses and trying to figure things out. It was really stressful because in the past, when she'd had relapses, I had my dad or I had family. But up in New York, we don't have any family. We didn't really know anyone. So it was really rough. And I was staying with a close family friend. She signed papers to become my foster mom for a bit. And while I was there with her, my therapist told me about Nar-Anon meetings. She didn't know that Narateen existed, but she told me about Nar-Anon, and I was looking online for some Nar-Anon meetings, and I ended up on I think I was on like the website, and it said that there was like a teen meeting. There were like not too many, but I saw that there were a few, so there was like a link for Wednesday at 7 p.m. And I was really nervous, and I went on to my first meeting, and it went really well. And Donna in Florida is the facilitator for the first meeting that I go to. I first entered, I just finally find people who may understand what I was going through. Really, really important that we get more teens onto Narateen because it's so much more helpful than I could have ever imagined. I've learned so much about myself, so much about the circumstances I'm in, so much about what I can do from joining Narateen and working the steps. And I have a sponsor now, and it's really good because, as a kid, no one tells you how to deal with those things, and everyone's always concerned about the addict themselves, and no one really asks about the kids or how their family's doing or just how they've affected their entire family. So for me, Narateen was kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel, it seemed, when I first started, and right now it's helped me to process so many of my feelings and to realize what, like, just for example, I've met so many other teens who would tell me like, it's really hard because I feel like I'm like the most mature one in my friend group and that, things like that. And I'd be like, yeah, I feel the same way. That's so weird. And then at one point, one of our facilitators told us, it's because you grew up like taking care of your own parent who was an addict. So that's why so many kids feel that way. And that's just one example that opened up so much understanding for me. Understand so much more. It hasn't even been a year better in so many ways. So our advocacy, more program, how we can help teens to kind of learn about this and get it on these meetings. Thank you guys for letting me share. It was, thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. We really appreciate having you here. If you can stick around for Q&A afterwards, that would be great. First, we're going to hear now from Cecilia. If we could put the spotlight on her, please. Hi, Cecilia. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Cecilia. I'm from New Jersey. And the addicts in my life are my parents. They are in recovery, which I am so proud of them for. Living with addiction is not fun, as everyone knows. I live with my grandparents currently. I was taken away from my parents when they were using at a young age, and then I would go back and they would relapse and I would come back here. So it's been a rough journey moving back and forth, but they are in recovery, and I'm so proud of them. I started Narateen in February when my counselor told me that it would be a good idea to listen to other teens and what they have to say, because I would always tell my counselor how I felt alone and that I didn't want to feel like this anymore. So going to the Narateen meetings, I learned how drugs were an addiction and how it's a disease. And I always thought that it was a choice and that they chose the drugs. And going to the meetings and listening to everyone else's story really helped me find out what was really going on, how addiction was so serious and how I could help. And going to the meetings, I thought I was doing it just for my parents. And no, that's not true at all. I was doing it for me, and I still am. And I'm doing the steps, doing the serenity prayer, the slogans, the workbook, and realizing that it's all for me because I was affected, but now it's my time to work together with my parents and work together with all of the Narateens and be together as one to explain how we feel, and let's make others feel not as alone as we felt. As Narateen always says, keep coming back. And it was hard for me to do that because some of the stuff that other people were saying, I didn't really like. It really hurt me. I didn't know how to agree with them because my situations were a little bit different. But at the end of the day, everyone had similar stories and everyone felt similarly. And recovery for us is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And yeah, that's my story. Hearing other people's stories really helped me because I didn't know other people felt that way. The facilitators are amazing. They have helped me through stuff, even outside of meetings. They're always willing to give you their number and emails, and they're always willing to help. Sometimes it's not just the addict in your life. It's daily problems, and they're still there. So you meet friends from all around the world, internet best friends, and I'm glad that Narateen has helped me become more social and become more like, I don't know, social with the addicts. Now I can talk to my parents about anything. We can speak about what happened in the past and we can work with it. The past is always going to come up, and we have to take that into the future, and that's who we're becoming. The past makes us who we are right now. And my whole perspective changed when I went to Narateen. So yeah, thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You guys both did fantastic. I'm so proud of you. I do want to give a special shout out also. Donna C is in here today. Donna is she leads Narateen in Florida, and she did a lot to help me to find the right two teens to be a part of this. And next year, I'm going to lean on her, and also Melissa is here. She's on the World Service Narateen committee as well, and I know they'll help me find for next year's. But really, the whole committee helped a lot, but Donna in particular was helping me make sure they got my emails and that she calmed me down because I was nervous and all of that. So I'm going to try to figure this out because I'd like to get Kimberly in the spotlight as well. or whoever is doing that, can we also add Kimberly to the back to the spotlight? So I have both of them.
Yes.
Fantastic. Both of them. So there's a lot of really wonderful comments and just talking about how fabulous you guys are. And I agree with every single one of them. I'm going to start off by one thing that I picked up on. Cecilia was talking about sharing of phone numbers and emails. That's one of the reasons why we have adult facilitators, to make sure that creepy adults don't find their way into these meetings and try to be in contact with teenagers. We want teenagers supporting teenagers. In my experience, when I was your guys' age, I really felt nobody else could understand what I was going through, that nobody else had a family as messed up as mine, that had an immediate family member in jail or came home at night and found the police there. I was in fear of my classmates finding out that this was my life. So are you able to share this experience with your usual classmates, or do you find that Narateen is the place where you deal with that part of your life?
I can say that Narateen is one of the only places I can deal with that part of my life. It's really, really hard to bring up around anyone else.
If you didn't have Narateen, can you imagine what your life right now would feel like? Either.
For me, I probably wouldn't be here. This has really helped me a lot with my depression and PTSD and my suicidal ideations. So I don't think I'd be here if Narateen wasn't a thing.
I know you both are making really good choices. You're both in school. I think you both work outside of school. Do you maintain what you feel are healthy relationships with other members of your families?
Could you like ask the question again? I'm sorry.
In addition to school and work and everything you do, are you able to maintain healthy relationships with other members, the non-addicts in your family? Are you able to do that?
I am, and I think it's really in part because Narateen has taught me that I'm not doing anything wrong by not trying to fix the addict. I think that if I didn't have Narateen, I wouldn't have nearly as much hope as I do now. And I would be constantly trying to fix the addicts in my life, which is what I used to try and do. But this has helped me to understand that I don't have to do that. And it gives me so much more time to talk with friends and family and have a job and, do so much stuff outside of that.
So how old were each of you when you figured out that drugs were a thing with your qualifier?
I think I was like 11 or 12. I don't think I understood. I didn't grasp how serious it was. I don't think I got the concept because I knew that my mom had a lot of surgeries and I knew that she took medicine for that. And I thought that when she would use, it was just her taking too much medicine. So I didn't understand how bad it was. But I can remember like moments in my childhood where I thought that maybe my mom was sick or wasn't feeling well, or we wouldn't be able to find her, didn't know where she was, and I'd go sleep over at like my aunt's house or like something like that. But I think in 6th grade, when I was 11 or 12, it really hit me kind of how serious it was.
And how about you, Cecilia?
It's been in my life since I was born, so I would say like 6 or 7. It became like really noticeable because I was old enough to understand a little of what was going on.
And did you guys feel, when you realized that the drugs were this big a problem, that somehow you were supposed to fix it?
I actually thought that I was the only one who could fix it for a really long time because my mom, she used way before I was born, but she says that she got clean to have me, which I'm not even 100% sure if that's true or not. But she said she got clean to have me, and that I was her sober baby, and that I was the reason she got clean. So for the longest time, I thought it was kind of on my back to make sure she stayed that way. So when I started coming to Narateen, then I understood that, like, that's not my job to make sure she stays clean. You know, I can support her and I can be around, but I've learned so recently that it's not, you know, it's not my job to make sure she's okay. Like, I shouldn't skip classes and things like that to make sure my mom is all right, because she's the parent.
Cecilia?
I always thought it was me. I always thought like I wasn't good enough, and they maybe chose the drugs over me, since it was my life. And going to Narateen, I realized how we can't cure it, we can't control it. Like, that's not what we're living to do. So yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm going to add from my own personal experience that I had a foster child in my home last year. And she came from a family, her father's in jail, her mother, she was removed from her mother because of drug addiction and prostitution. And this child, she was 17 and did not want help, did not want to see a therapist, and would not try Narateen. And her solution was she felt she could be reunited with her family if she behaved like them, and she started using drugs to try to gain her family's approval. And I think for the rest of us here today, you can see in these two teens making better choices. And I think Narateen has helped them to make choices that seem to me to be pretty healthy. I'm going to add Donna to the spotlight because she is on the World Service Narateen Committee and also helped me find Cecilia and Kimberly, and she wanted to say something as well. Hi, Donna.
Hi, hi, Ken. I just thank you so much, Cecilia and Kimberly. They're just so wonderful. All the teens are just amazing. And I wanted to share something because it hit home, and it was when Kimberly first started her first meeting, and it just hit home for me because it was exactly how I felt going to my first NarAnon meeting. I was no longer alone, and I can remember Kimberly at that first meeting getting very emotional, and that's exactly what she said. She said, I can't believe I'm not alone in this. And, you know, I know for myself, I was so wrapped up in my older son's addiction. I have a younger son too, and he has special needs. So it's hard for him to, you know, to really understand things that are going on, but I'm sure he was understanding things that were going on with his brother. And I'm just so grateful that this program exists for the teens, and they share, they lead the meetings, they run the meetings. The facilitators, us, we have Manina's on. I'm not sure if Jerry's on, but Manina's the other facilitator that helps out on our meeting. You know, a lot of meetings, we just sit back and they have the agenda and it's their meeting. And I can tell you, they really help each other, and they've gotten very close. And I know they've shared phone numbers, and I know that, you know, I've been told that they do reach out to each other. So it's just such a wonderful program for them, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you so much. I did see in the chat somebody mentioned there is a meeting in Colombia, which I was not aware of. So it's not on our list. So I'd be curious to know why. So if somebody could contact me about that later, we'll find out. because it should be on our list, because if, particularly if it's a virtual meeting, then Spanish-speaking teens from wherever I would suppose could join. So whoever knows about that meeting, if you could contact me, I already posted the email address, or you could contact the World Service Committee, either way. I'm looking to see if there are any more. There's just lots and lots of wonderful comments for Kimberly and Cecilia. I hope you guys feel good about doing this, because you did great. I know you were both a little nervous, and Kimberly, thank your supervisor for giving you your break at this time. We really appreciate that. It is 1:14. I'm going to turn it back over to Roxanne. We did agree that some of us will stay online past the end of this, past 1:15. So if we want to continue to chat about this or any of the guest speakers, we're happy to do that. So thank you so much to all the Narateen folks. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ken. Okay, so thank you to all of our speakers. We really appreciate everyone taking your time out to come out and share your stories with us today, especially expanding the reach by having our Spanish folks join us, having our teens join us. I really hope that we can continue to add this to our annual tradition. So we want to thank the committee again for putting on this wonderful event, and especially in such short time, everyone pulled together to be able to take on different roles to make sure that the event would come off without any glitches. So last year with our Narathon, we raised $3,110. So far this year, Susan, do we have a new total as to what we've raised so far?
Right now, we're at $2,098, and I would just encourage all of you, anything you heard today is just part of your recovery, and it is so much more beneficial than going to a counselor, and it's cheaper than going to a counselor. So please, if you haven't donated yet, or even if you have and something spoke to you here today even deeper, continue to think about what you're able to give. I know for myself, this program made me sane. So I'm grateful to be here, and today turned out awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you for your service, Susan. All right. So again, a reminder that we have new literature that was approved from our last conference, and those materials are now starting to show up on the World Service website. So if you go to nar-anon.org to the WSO World Service site, it will have literature there that you can purchase, and I will put that in the chat real quick so you can go there and look at the different literature that is available. There is also the new blue booklet that is available, that is revised and is available now. So if you would like the newest version of that, please go on there and purchase it. We will have an audio recording of this available that will be posted on our SoCal website and available for future reference. If you are a visitor and have not attended a NarAnon meeting previously, you can find a local meeting. Ken, if you can put in the chat, the find a meeting for our SoCal website and or the WSO site. If you go to find a meeting, there are still a lot of meetings doing virtual. Some have started to go back to in person. Whichever you're comfortable with, just seek out those meetings. We try to keep the websites as up to date as possible. It's only as up to date as the groups remit the information to us. So just reach out and hopefully you can find a local meeting. There are some permanent virtual meetings such as mine that I have on Wednesdays. It's a permanent virtual, and I have people who attend from East Coast, West Coast, San Diego to Canada. So you can, you may find a family on one of those virtual meetings as well. And let's see, so Ken and Roseanne have decided to stay on for a little bit of a after meeting. So if there's any additional comments or questions or anything that you guys want to talk about, they'll stay on. But with that, that's all I have. I'd like to say thank you so much for everyone for putting on a great meeting. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday with us, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Okay, so let's close out with our serenity prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept the things
I
I
cannot
cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom
know the difference.
to know the difference.
Amen.
Thank you so much, everyone. Great,
Thank you,
great.
Good job, everybody.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Roxanne.
You're welcome. We can go ahead and stop the recording.
This has been the Southern California Nar-Anon Family Group's 2021 Narathon event, Healing to Hope. The hosts were Southern California Regional Chair Roxanne and Committee Member Ken. Spanish language translation was provided by Angie. The adult speakers were Paige, Richard, Andy, and Miguel. The Narateen Fellowship was represented by Ken and Donna, and the teen speakers were Kimberly and Cecilia. If you'd like to find a group meeting to attend, please visit our website at naranonsocal.org/find-a-meeting. Our meetings are free, and the only qualification for membership is the addiction of a loved one. And as a reminder, this event was intended to be a fundraiser for the Nar-Anon Family Group's Southern California region. Please visit our website at naranonsocal.org and click on the Donate button on the homepage. Use the Comments dialog box to indicate if you're donating to our Narathon fundraiser. If you are donating on behalf of a group, please also include your group ID number and meeting name. And remember, keep coming back. It works if you work it, and it won't if you don't. So do it because you're worth it.